There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show. Obviously, little guy's not here right now. He's at a party. Lucky little guy. He'll probably join us later because he really wanted to talk about aliens. That's kind of like his thing. But for now, we've got Connell, the Cigar DM, and of course Shauner. And we'll save a couple more spots open for the usual suspects. But tonight we're going to talk about aliens, classic aliens from sci-fi movies and TV shows, maybe even books if we run out. But we want to talk about the really cool aliens that weren't just people in rubber masks or things glued to their head or their ears or things like that. The really weird looking aliens out there, because 90%, if not more, of all the aliens in TV and movies, going all the way back, were usually just people in costumes. And I want to kind of talk about the whether they be animatronics, CGI, puppets, claymation, if that was a thing. I can't really think of any claymation, but I suspect that would have been a great way to do aliens back, in the early days of TV. Any claymation coming to mind with you guys?
There was a French movie that was done. It was a black and white, and it was before sound was a thing. And I think they might have used claymation in it, but don't hold me to it because it's been forever since I've seen it. But yeah, it was. They went to the moon. They fought something like little Martian-looking things, and they came back. It was really weird, but yeah, I think it was
weirder than what Shauna showed off earlier today.
Oh, what did
you want to tell them about it? The trip to the moon video.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the one where the rocket gets stuck in the moon's eye?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a classic, but I don't think there was any. Didn't they just throw whipped cream on somebody's face, or am I thinking of the one from Smashing Pumpkins?
It looked like they threw a pie in his face.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He was supposed to be crying. But you know how it is, by the time they get the makeup on and then they have to do the film, and the film back then, 120 years ago, was crap.
Yeah.
Exposure-wise. The sets would get hot with the lights. I was thinking of the monkeys from Wizard of Oz. Weren't they real monkeys, or were they people?
They were midgets. I mean, short people. They were short people in costumes.
They were kind of cool aliens.
I mean, do they count as aliens?
I would say they're a race. They're a race.
Yeah.
They're an alien race.
Right? Do they count as, well, they're definitely alien towards, but under the same, so was the Tin Man. How even the aliens in that sense.
Sorry, guys, my dog is going nuts. We've got I was telling Connell, there's a birthday party in the neighborhood, so everybody's using my driveway. In front of my house is a parking lot. Little guy's over there, feasting on Mexican food. I was there earlier. Neighborhood thing. We've been friends since we moved in. Actually, we've been here longer. That's weird. I think we're the people. We're out of the 15 houses in the cul-de-sac I live in. We're like the old timers now. Everybody's just gone, dust in the wind.
15 houses on a cul-de-sac. That's not a cul-de-sac. That's a street.
Well, it's actually
an L-shaped thing.
Well, it's more like how do I put this without? It's like two cul-de-sacs that have one street leading into it, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
Where you live in? You live in Dubai? All the streets in Dubai you just described.
Oh, no, I was thinking of something else. Okay. But I was watching Venture Brothers with the boy this morning, so I guess that's why I was thinking about that. Speaking of which, Connell, how have you been enjoying that?
That humor could get in trouble with certain people, but I'm enjoying it.
Okay. Yeah, my son keeps saying, "What am I watching? What is this?" Just shaking his head.
It takes a while. It takes a while, especially if you watch it out of context. But everyone has a backstory eventually on that series.
Yep. Yep. We're gonna have to do a shadow chat just on the Venture Brothers. I think at some point when Connell and the little guy catch up. I'm still
Yeah,
2 seasons behind.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it because it's been 20 years since I watched that show.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Every time I watch it, I see or hear something new. We were laughing.
The dialogue is, quick and snappy, and there's lots of it. And I'm always pausing the DVD when I watch that cartoon. Like, what did they say? What? Yeah. What reference was that? They reference weird stuff because it's a take on 5 or 6 different things that were going on in the 60s, and they merged it all together.
Scooby-Doo, Venture Brothers, Venture Brothers, Johnny Quest. I want to say some of the other Hanna-Barbera cartoons, maybe. Obviously, Super Friends.
Yeah, Marvel. The Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. They make sort of a cameo appearance in one season.
Stephen Colbert, before he went completely insane, was fantastic as Professor Impossible or whatever, and then
Mr. Impossible.
Mr. Impossible, and then I guess he got all big and wanted a lot more money, and they said, nah, we can just get somebody else.
Yeah, they found somebody else.
That's normally what happens.
It's only like 5 or 6 people doing the voices. They don't need a whole. They don't need a whole bunch of people.
I mean, even
I'm gonna pop Omen in real quick. But speaking of that, there's a couple of scenes where you can tell that I don't know if it's Doc Hammer or Jackson Public. They get the character wrong in their head, and he's supposed to be doing I think 21, but he ends up doing Dr. Girlfriend's voice instead. It's early on in the series, but my son and I were laughing our ass off because we got to the part where they go to 21's locker to get all his secret stash of weapons. And then they pull out the Lord of the Rings sword, and of course the Monarch ends up with those Hulk fists. And because my son wanted those as a kid, and we just nah. He was like 3 years old or something, and it was just so funny because he knew exactly what we were looking at, and it was just like, they come running in.
Well, you know what my favorite is when he has when he starts selling off his he has the yard sale, and Henchman 21 buys the lightsaber that doesn't do anything, and he's like, boom, and he goes in a full 360. Whoa,
I think they actually choreographed that in line with that famous nerd who did the lightsaber thing. He's kind of a big guy, and I think they use that almost shot for shot where he's doing that thing. Yeah.
I felt so sorry for that guy.
Well,
sorry for that kid.
The shrink. One of them had the shrink ray, and they had the logo on the thing is supposed. It shows that it's a shrink button or something, and they said that's cheap. That's a ripoff. They're arguing about the stupid plastic toy gun that has.
But yet it is an actual shrink ray.
The Venture Brothers, and man, you could tell that they loved all the stuff I grew up on in the 70s and the 60s.
Oh yeah,
and I went. That's what really got me in there. But yeah, I love when they were selling all that stuff. The other part I love is when Brock decides to leave the Venture Brothers with Natasha Cocktease, and she decides to teach them how to fight, and he comes over, and what was it? Was it Dean that grabs the pencil and stabs his brother? And she says, "Niet, we are not on the weapons training."
Yeah,
Like how
Shonner's always actually.
the
Shonner has
the house was based on the Thunderbirds.
Oh, it was.
It's all international style.
Oh no, I'm not thinking the Thunderbirds. I'm thinking the Silverhawks, the cartoon from the 80s. Never.
Yeah, used to be the marionettes from 64 or 67, something like that.
Yeah, which was pretty incredible. I can see why Team America was a thing, and to this day, my son and I watched that movie several times a year.
There's one episode where they have the satellite space station or something.
With the ugly lady that they won't show her face. Like she has a really nice body, but they all like,
yeah.
Which must be a throwback to that astronaut woman that they also never show her face.
That's what I'm referring to. I think that's what.
That's her. That's her.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I thought you were talking about.
She's so tall. Anyway, her head goes off the frame. You know.
Well, I love when Dean. I can't remember if it's Dean. Anyway, that's looking over and they're seeing Brock have sex with her. He's like, he's not even using any hands. That must be the way, just the whole description of everything. It's like, yeah, you can go take her. Yeah, go fight her. Yeah, you can do it.
They think it's wrestling or something.
Yeah, that is probably the greatest comic. And I understand Warner Brothers getting rid of a lot of their animation stuff. I went, why would you cancel that one? Why would you cancel that season? Those were like the best.
What was it?
Well, did HBO ever take them? Or is they still
I believe so. I believe
because HBO started to axe some things too. Warner's axing, Discovery's axing, Disney seems to be collecting rubbish, but everyone else seems to be chopping off stuff.
Well, it was like Rick and Morty had the same problem. They were too popular that it's just they didn't know if they should bring them back. The obvious answer is yes, and it wasn't a financial issue. Just should we? And it was, if it's making money and you're running a business, the answer should always be yes.
Yeah, but you want to get woke, go broke. That's the plan.
Well, here's the problem that I had with Rick and Morty is, what is it? The writers have signed an agreement for something like 70 episodes. But you can tell that they're in other projects, so they can't devote their full time to it.
Yeah.
So that's why it takes 1.5 to 2 years to get one season, which always amazes me because we want to talk about, I know this says non-human, but look at what they did with, whether it's Babylon 5 or The Simpsons or a lot of these others in their earlier years, when they could pump out 26 episodes a year or something like that. And now they can barely do 10 every 2 years. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? You used to actually have writers that could sit down and do all that.
Yeah, but people burned out back then, though. People don't want to work anymore. Ever since COVID, they don't want to come back to work. They just want to phone it in.
I think it was even before COVID. If you remember the writer's strike, I was a huge fan of the TV show Hero, and that destroyed it.
They never recover when they have a writer's strike. They never recover.
It's not sci-fi, but I was a big fan of the TV show House MD, and that show.
That was a good show.
The other one that I really liked and they just killed and was Constantine. The
13 great episodes, and they're like, nope, sorry, we're not going to do it. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, and I read the Hellblazers, the Hellblazer comic, and it was pretty much true to the character. Yeah. That's what got me. The character actually looked unlike, I have friends that
but good shows doesn't mean good ratings, though. That's the problem.
That's
or maybe it costs too much, or maybe a stupid dog cartoon would, like Max Headroom, my favorite show on planet Earth. They canceled it. They canceled Max Headroom.
I remember.
And they put Mr. Belvedere in that time slot.
What gets me about it is, the same thing they did with Airwolf and some of these others. They had the few, the shows I loved as a kid. They put them up there, and they would do really well in their time slot, and then they would move the time slot somehow, thinking that they're going to win. And I'm like, leave it in its damn time slot. And then they moved it around 3 or 4 times, so no one knows what week it was on, let alone what day it's on. And then they go, well, we don't know why it failed. Like,
USA took it and ran with it for a while.
I mean, so it was big enough. X-Files. How many X-Files, in your opinion, jumped the proverbial shark before they said, oh, no more? I mean, I at least count 5 where they could have ended it. Some shows run way too long. Other shows don't run far enough. Firefly being the example on the other side of this.
That was a tragedy. That was an absolute total miscarriage of justice. It was potentially, one of the best sci-fi shows of all time, and Fox has got the monopoly on stupid maneuvers when it comes to that.
Have you guys watched the Family Guy version of Star Wars?
Oh God!
Oh yeah. Blue Harvest, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. But when they come over and they have the 3. They go through all 3 of the different movies. But one of them are like, these guys actually. He says, what was it? Fox. They actually let him keep the rights to the toys. These are the people that are handling. They just go through that, and then the same thing when they did Family Guy. Where he says, "I have bad news, family. We've been canceled." And they're like, "Oh no, what are we going to do?" He says, "Well, when we come back," he says, and he rattles off like 20 or 30.
I was just thinking, yep.
And they were good. And he put Firefly in there. Firefly, and some other ones I enjoyed. I was like, wow. That whoever was running that, I heard the same thing with Titus. I love Titus, the first 2 seasons.
I used to like Titus until he decided to start running his mouth with absolute TDS pumped up to 11. I'm like, nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear this. You could have just stayed funny. Instead, you just alienated half the country from ever wanting to watch you ever again.
Well, yeah, but I meant but the originals, the seasons, when they had his show Titus, which
with Stacy Keach.
Yes, and I love his father, where he was like, I thought Dad was just relaxing, and then they showed the fist cam, bam, like comes right up and hits him in the head. I was like, that was hilarious. But my understanding is the network exec. It's not even that they weren't getting commercials. The network executive just didn't like the show, and they intentionally sabotaged them if they didn't like the show. I went, what are you doing? If it's making money, keep it.
Because it's been a
it's politics nowadays.
But it's been that way for longer than most of us are aware. I think it's really been going on for a long time.
Well, like it's who you know is what says if your show lasts or not.
It's who you blow. It's who you blow.
Yeah. when they hire a new executive, the first thing that executive wants to do is show how powerful they are, and they start whamming things. And Walmart's the same way. Every time Walmart gets like a new CEO, they got to change fucking how the $1 trillion company buys from China and what the store is going to sell, and the profits, and the associates are getting burned out every time this happens. So it's like every time someone new is put in charge, they got to start changing how things are done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
half the time they don't know the success of the company, and they run it into the ground.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why they don't hire, and I saw this even when I worked for Dell, why they never hired internally a lot of times. They will intentionally get someone from outside to come in rather than trying to promote within. And so there was a joke when I worked there, it's a great first and third job because you'd have to leave. And so I had a friend that did that. I think he worked, he got as far as they could. They didn't want to pay more than 5 or 10% more if you got a new job. So he'd leave, and then he comes back and paid $50,000 more, like 2 or 3 years later. And I went,
that's how IT was. Yeah, 20 years ago, that's how IT was. You just had to quit, go somewhere else, then come back.
Hey, Shadow, I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, Fort Worth. They were in Fort Worth, right? Back in the 90s?
They're stationed out of Round Rock, Texas, which is just north of Austin. And actually, I got hired right as the tech crashed. And so my friend... 2000.
Okay.
So Dell stock, kept going up and up and up, and then you had the tech crash in 2000, and I got hired right at the end of that. And boy, they, Intel and everywhere else was here. Anyway, that's kind of boring, but the whole point is that they wouldn't hire internally to get a lot of their managers. So the managers didn't even know what was going on. They'd hire someone with an MBA to come in that had never done, like I worked in tech support. But what was funny was they're like, and my friend had internal emails showing like when people burned out. So they knew people burned out after 18 months, but they refused to let them leave customer service to go into other parts of the company. And the vice president specifically said, no one is leaving my my department. I said, okay, so how does that encourage us to stay with the company? And how do you make more money? Because you have to retrain all these people when they leave. Anyway, that's one way too much. I'd much rather talk about
that was back when HP bought Compaq, and Zenith was bought by Gateway and all this.
Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard for a while. Zenith.
Yeah, everything was imploding. People were merging.
But here's
Dell survived because they got military contracts.
Well, HP survived, but here's what I thought was interesting. Sorry, as we go into tech stuff, because I kept up with a lot of it, which was HP made 25% of their profits off of printers. And I said, why are you buying all? Yes. Well, the ink, they used to have the best printers. Now, to be honest, my brother's is fantastic that I bought. But I used to get HP because they were rock solid. They did everything. The printing was good. That's where they're making all their money. I said, why are you going over into something that's being commoditized, where your margin of profit is only like 5 or 10% when you get this huge other areas for profit? I said, oh, well. And that my friend worked at Compaq, then they got bought out. And then who else bought out? Was it DEC?
That was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they
bought DEC.
Well, they were all in the 90s, and Compaq bought them out, and then anyway, let's talk about the Venture Brothers. I much prefer that.
I was about to say I don't know.
So I have a question. In the Venture Brothers, was there an alien that wasn't just a guy with a face mask?
Well, no, there was only the one that says "Ignore me, ignore me," and then the guy steps up.
Right.
Was that like a squid kind of a person or something? What did they look like?
Oh, yeah. When he comes over and he says, you came back as my father. He says, well, I'm not really your father. Yeah, it was this. I think that's what happened.
See, it's been a while since I watched that show.
It's under HBO. Well, I do have HBO Max because it comes with my.
I have all the DVDs. It's just a matter of me sitting
I
around.
actually bought the entire season. Oh, my God. I was bored. And it was on Vudu. I'm like, Shadow and a few other people talk about the show enough. I should probably watch it. And I bought worse. I bought worse.
Well, the other one I liked was the Oblongs.
Oh, wow. That was
weird. Yeah, that was really weird. I watched, I used to stay up watching Adult Swim. It would be like the only thing I would actually watch on TV for years.
Yeah.
And that one was just really, really weird.
Sorry.
No, you talk before I did. Go ahead.
All right. When Adult Swim did Cowboy Bebop, Big O, and all the anime sci-fi, it was amazing. Then somebody had the brilliant ideas like, hey, let's dumb down our shows. Not by a degree, not by 5%, but 100%. And I'm like, okay, you don't have, Cowboy Bebop. You don't have Big O. You don't have Boondocks. If any of you guys seen that show, I love that show.
Well, it's obvious why they took that one off. That one was,
hate speech.
But it's done by a black writer and everything else. That's what got me back.
My mom used to love that show, and she was reading the comic strip before it was ever, a TV show. Uh-oh, here comes trouble. Watch out, guys.
None of the characters were likable, though, in that cartoon.
I have a friend who lives down in Tennessee, and he's a big black man. He's like 6'5", and just as big around. And we went to a couple restaurants. I'm a food guy. I cook for a living, as I've said before. And they have this family-style restaurant down there. I'm not going to say name, just in the off chance I could get in trouble, but, whatever. And I sit down. Me and him are talking. We're having breakfast, which I never thought about having fried chicken for breakfast. But after eating at that restaurant, it's a thing now.
Fried chicken and waffles? Yeah.
I got my pancakes. I got my scrambled eggs, and I got my fried chicken. Anyways, a huge black family comes down, comes sit next to us. Not a big deal, whatever. I mean, my own business. And he goes, it's awful nice of you white folks in here with the ... I'm like, don't knock it off. Knock it off right now. He's like, what's wrong, Mr. White Man? Just went full Uncle Ruckus.
You know what? And I have to laugh at this because I look at, like when I lived in Chicago and they're all horrified when they would have fried chicken and watermelon. And I come from the South, and I went, look, they pretend that's a black thing. It's not. It's a Southern thing.
Yeah.
But because a lot of blacks, when they did the sharecropping and stuff and were treated very poorly in the South, moved up north, they took all of the food with them, that culture. And so the people relate that to being black, and I relate that to being in the South. Because I'll tell you this much. I don't know anyone that's going to pass that fried chicken and watermelon down here.
Fried chicken, fried chicken if made with buttermilk.
Okay.
Greens, cornbread, good mashed potatoes. I'm talking good mashed potatoes where you use almost a tub of butter. Mashed potatoes. No. I have family from the Tennessee area. I know what you're talking about. And a bunch of these northern fucks I live around have no idea what they're missing because it's black people food. We don't eat that stuff.
I'm not a foodie, so I eat whatever's on my plate. I don't care.
Well, I appreciate that about you. I do want to apologize to everybody else. I apologize to Shadow. I was making dinner when everything this got started up. So I was sitting next to the stove making my dinner, which is potato leek soup, more or less. I'm not going to use the French name because everybody's like, what did you say?
Wait, French?
Yes. Hey, you hate the German?
Don't get him started.
You said German and Japanese.
Nobody likes the French, but nobody appreciates what they've done. All right, the French. Okay.
Are you showing off your stash there, Owen?
I am showing off what I normally have for dinner, which is a big thick ribeye. So.
Oh, okay. It looked green.
Well, that's because I put parsley and thyme on the outside of it, and then I sous vide it, and then I'll. Okay. And then
we need to talk sometime there, Ross.
Well, you know what, Connell? If you come down here to Texas, let me know. You can hook me up.
You see, Jack, there's another damn reason for us to get the hell out of here, buddy. Yeah, Texas, I'm telling you.
In California, meat is made of plastic.
I don't know what you California fucks are going to do in 2030 when you guys can't buy new cars.
Oh, I'll be gone by then. I'll be gone or dead.
Yeah, I'll be gone. I'll be long gone by then.
I love you both, but as soon as I heard that law, I'm like, that is dumb.
Hey, we had nothing to do with that.
And what happens here spreads across the globe.
Well, see, this is what I expect.
Prepare. It's not going to just be California. Other states are going to follow.
Well, it's the federal government that's the real issue. But what I'm expecting Shadow and Shauner to do is going to build like one of those 1950s rocket ships, at the very end, and they're going to hop in and just like...
It'll be interstellar. You go to some office building, and they say, you're standing in the rocket ship. This whole building's going to the other planet. Really?
Realistically, state-wise, I'm in Illinois. Politically wise, and I really don't want to stay too far on this topic, but politically wise, Illinois is fucked. It's been fucked since.
I lived there for 2 years. I came right after they upped the income tax rate. I'm like, really? When it was like 3.75 to 5%.
Right.
And then I was like, man. And so then I left, and they said, oh, that was temporary. And they said, well, yeah, but we can't meet our budget, so we're just going to keep it at 5%. And I went, yep, you're so screwed. Even though where I live, things get more expensive. But yeah,
I tell you this though, if you can find me a family that'll pay me as much as I'm getting paid now to be an in-house chef, I'll move in a heartbeat. But you got a match or better when being paid now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that comes down to it. I'm sorry, Connell. If I had the money, I'd pay for an in-house chef.
So anyway, I like the alien from The Thing.
Oh yeah,
It wasn't just a guy with the
Yeah,
with the
yeah, that
mask.
was a good one.
I know it was an alien, but it was. I mean, you're right. It wasn't just an alien with a rubber face. It was a blob with a rubber face with tentacles.
But it could
It was
mimic
also the
a person.
dog and people. Well, where'd you go, Sport? We scared him off with the thing. I don't know. He'll be back.
So remember,
He'll be back with the thing.
Well,
Yeah, no shit.
well, remember Max talking about the like I said, I like to listen to Free League. Well, they would come up and talk about Alien. They'd have Drew Gaska, who's considered the expert that like Disney. I guess it's Disney now since they own Alien. That they'll go to. And he said, "Well, what crossover would you like to do?" And he said, "What I'd like to do is Alien versus the Thing." And he said, "The reason they have the acid blood is to prevent the Thing taking over its cells." And that I was like, "Yeah, that would be a really cool idea."
I saw the new Predator movie on Hulu, and it wasn't trash. It wasn't great, but there's been a lot of shitty Predator movies since the first one, and this one is not one of them.
I still love the second.
Everyone says it's okay.
Yeah. They're like it's meh. It's not.
But it's a Predator movie. We've kind of got used to meh.
Well, meh in this current state is like stellar. That's how low things have gotten in the whole thing. I mean, I love to watch some of the. Speaking of the Inhuman monsters, come on, let's not forget about the. I guess it's
the blue people from Avatar.
Oh, the cat folks. Oh,
are they too human-like?
Yeah, I think so.
But it was rubber faces. It wasn't rubber mask.
Yeah, it was all computer gen, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're tall. They're tall people.
I still miss the ones that with the and I know it's not an alien per se, but that comes out of the swamp. That was in the big rubber suits and had the
creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
that's like a lizard race.
It's right out of H.P. Lovecraft. It's like the deep ones from H.P. Lovecraft. That's how I always saw it as a kid.
The fish gill lizard. Yeah.
Yeah. But we were before when we were in the green room at the start, we were talking about probably, as far as I know, other than like I said before, the things from Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, the Martians from War of the Worlds, absolutely classic. Those eyeballs just creeped me the hell out. Those three-colored eyes.
Did you ever watch the 19
eyeball?
The 1980? It was like late 80s, early 90s syndicated War of the Worlds where
yes, I love that show. I love that show, and it had nothing to do with that, but yeah.
What did they look like in the TV show?
Humans.
Oh.
No. Well, yeah, they were human because they got the feeling, but when you killed them, they started forming into the alien.
I thought they just turned into goo.
There was a show.
Well, I think that you see like the arm or something like that.
There's two TV shows. One was the 90s and one was like the 2000s or something.
It was the 90s. I was still in high school.
One had the hand that goes over the planet, like the beginning of the show or something like that.
I'm trying to think of that's the problem that I had with, and I heard that Roddenberry did this with Star Trek, even though we all remember the reptile where he had to fight them all. Yeah, but apparently Roddenberry didn't want anything that wasn't non-human to have more than one episode for them. And I went, well, that really, that's apparently what Roddenberry wanted, because he wanted it to be more humanoid centric. And
that's very stupid.
That's weak as hell.
I know there's a lot of different shows and whatnot that can base their the Star Trek is, that's how they came to be. Star Trek, we're going the Star Trek route. But I am so freaking tired of bipedal aliens.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
This is why I loved Star Frontiers. That because of your 4 races, only 2 were bipedal.
I mean, that's kind of, I mean, like it or hate it, but that was kind of the reason why I liked Farscape.
Yes, I felt the same way. I like Farscape. I know that Max doesn't, but I like Farscape. And it was exactly that same reason. I said, thank God you have aliens that actually look alien.
Yeah,
I only saw a couple episodes of it, and Chiani, or whatever her name was enough reason for me to watch it, and that was about it.
Virginia.
The blue lady?
No, that was
Virginia, with the white hair.
But Gigi, aren't you talking about the one that's grayish?
I like the girl from Road Warrior.
Yeah, that's Virginia Hayes. She was the blue one, and apparently her body could not take the makeup, so she had to drop out. And then they replaced with the other one. But I liked the Navigator. I liked the not necessarily I liked the character that much, but yeah. But even the humanoid ones still were not human. Like they had the backwards facing. It looked more almost like an ostrich kind of thing with the legs. Where the legs went like with the knees.
Are you talking about Contact?
No. This is some of the stuff that they would do with Farscape. It's like they would come in, and yes, they were bipedal, but the head was not human, and then the legs were made more like a chicken, with the knees been backwards rather than forwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like Contact.
Not all the characters in that show were, great as characters, but I've yet to be disappointed with the Jim Henson movie creatively as of yet. I watched Dark Crystal. I just got done watching the Netflix version of Dark Crystal: The Age of Resistance, which, if you watch that one, then Dark Crystal, there's a huge chunk in the middle that's just gone. It was never made.
Well, they canceled the Dark Crystal. They canceled season 2 of it.
Oh, I know.
But
bring it back, but yeah, I got canceled.
The other one that got me was, and I enjoyed it, and yes, I know it filled all the tropes, but I had a ton of fun for Netflix, was Bright, which is not Bright, and they said they're going to make the second one. I said, well, look.
I don't remember that much about that movie.
What was that?
I remember hearing about it as this big thing. I just thought it got canceled and never released.
Well, Bright 2 was never made. They talked about it, but Bright 1, the very first Bright, it's Shadowrun without them saying it's Shadowrun.
It really was, yeah. It had a good cast in it, that could act, think what you want about Will Smith, but he can't act, if the paycheck's big enough.
It was just some stupid racial allegory movie.
No. Well, to be fair, you can do that. I don't mind allegories, but they did not throw it in your face as racial. It was orcs and elves and humans. It was Shadowrun, basically. They basically took Shadowrun. It had some magic. It had, and I'm okay with that, because let's be honest, but they didn't throw it in your face and say, these are black people. That was not what they did in the modern, they didn't do that. And I know someone watched Bright and said, oh, look, I can relate this to orcs being black, and now I'm going to push this on to WotC. And I went, yeah, you're just doing click. There was one person that complained about that, and also, but anyway.
I've said this before. If you're looking for a reason to bitch, you'll find it in anything out there.
Absolutely. James L's got a great one. I definitely don't want to pass over the Daleks. That was genius for not just its time, but even today. The whole idea of the squeegee brain thing plugged into a machine. Those guys, other than their weakness to stairs, they
fixed that problem. They fixed that problem with Chris Rackens. They can hover.
Well, let's just be honest. They had a budget of $5, and for what they could do with $5 is still amazing.
Yeah,
it would take a lot more money to make that now, and all you need is a Roomba.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong because I'm right.
Well,
hey! I don't have the timeout button tonight, but I will tomorrow.
But I mean, the whole thing I looked at is just one more thing on the Bright part. It's your typical cop buddy movie in Shadowrun. That's all it is. But no, I agree. Bring up the more aliens. The other part is you remember the cartoons like not that everything's perfect, but the Star Wars Clone War cartoon in the early 2000s, which I really enjoyed. They did that. You know, the one thing I haven't really looked at was the old Flash Gordon cartoon from either was 1979 or 1980, right around there.
That was good.
I liked that one.
What was
The
it?
one that came out before Revenge of the Sith? Wait, are you talking about the?
No. The Clone War cartoon.
Clone Wars.
Yeah.
2001, 2002.
I mean, with
the TV
animation or animation cartoons, you have more option to present more bizarro aliens than you do with practical magic. Now that computers are more of a thing in Hollywood than they were back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's just the window is open. Any direction you want to go. There was a TV show on Sci-Fi Face-Off where they had makeup artists come in.
I used to watch that. Jackie and I used to watch that too. He probably doesn't remember, but you watched
great.
a couple episodes.
It was amazing for what it was.
They had one day or something to make their outfits.
Yeah.
And then they would get judged, and then they'd have to do it over again the next day and make a whole other new costume.
One of my,
No
for
pressure.
contests like that, they were looking for people for a cooking contest here where I live to be on TV. And a bunch of my friends like, you should go do it. You should go do them. I looked at all of them like, you can go fuck yourselves. You can fuck yourselves off the bridge with Dan.
It helps to have a girl that is skinny and can flex because they have to fit in the outfit that you're making.
Well, what was the guy named Doug? He is the to-go guy in Hollywood for if you want to put a weird costume on a skinny guy. Doug Jones or Jones Doug or whatever his name is.
There's thousands of people now.
He was in Hellboy.
Used to be Rick Baker. That was about it.
Oh, remember the guy that did Alien? Who was like, they just found him on the street?
He was a skinny dude.
He was, but he was like 6'8" or something.
Yeah.
And they put him in there with the whole. I mean, when you look at him, and apparently, I mean,
that's roll up in a ball.
Well, he could do that.
Something like that.
Well, he
double jointed and all that. He was all the things.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
like the robots in Silent Running.
Of course, they found him on the Hollywood Strip, right?
What was that? Sorry,
I said, of course, they found him on the Hollywood Strip.
No. It was made in England, so they just found him like at a coffee shop or something, and they're like, "Hey, would you be interested?" And he worked out really well. And there were times in when they're shooting where you can see his feet, he's wearing sneakers, throughout the costume.
Well, hell, there was a Kirk Douglas, the Spartan movie he did back in the day, where there's certain Spartacus. I'm sorry, it's been forever. But there are certain scenes where you can see him either wearing tennis shoes or a watch.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, in Troy, that happened a lot with Brad Pitt.
If you've been her. Well, I mean, I know we've gone completely away from Not Alien. They said that because Charlton Heston could ride a horse and could do stuff on the chariot, that allowed him to do a lot of close-ups instead of just having always the stuntman do everything.
Stuntman.
My favorite Hollywood oops, as of today is the second to last episode of Game of Thrones. It might be a third to last episode of Game of Thrones. So last season, where they're in Winter Run. I know I know Shadow's like, what show are you talking about? Anyways, they're in the feast hall of this castle, and you can see for a quick second there is a Starbucks coffee cup on the table.
That show sucked.
Yes, it did.
That wasn't even a TV show. That was just garbage. That was just cosplay.
I mean, I liked the first couple of seasons.
First 4 seasons, probably good. The rest, garbage.
And that's the problem with it, is that they went off, and you could tell that the writers were phoning it in. That's what got me. The last 2 seasons, they just rushed. You're like, well, we just want to do Star Wars. Like, if you had done a really great job with this, the fans would have followed you over. but because you made it, now people can't even watch the beginning seasons, which are good, because the bad ending is so bad. Yeah.
I do to that show what I've done to Star Trek. I find a character I want to follow, and I will just watch the episodes that are based on that character. Jon Snow, Tyrion are really the only two characters.
Varys is mine. I love Varys.
Varys is, or Braun. I love not Braun. The cell sword that Tyrion picks up.
That's Braun.
Yeah.
But see, you're right. I follow this well, just like when we talk about reading Lord of the Rings. I've read Lord of the Rings a couple of times. I got tired of the Hobbits, so I would skip over them. I don't care about this section of the book, and that removes like half of the things. I'm like, I don't care about some stupid hobbits wandering around in Mordor. I know the story. I'm done.
If I have to listen to fucking Sam sing about those elephants one more damn time, I'm going to shove this book down somebody's throat.
It was. Come on, he did a lot of little songs in there. It's half a page. And the fact
it's the one part I could joke about that everybody knows.
Oh, well,
you know what's amazing though when you talk about those songs, if you go back and watch the Hobbit cartoon,
yes,
the guy who sang them and wrote the music and to put them to music was a guy named Glenn Yarborough. Talk about the ultimate bard name for a fantasy campaign. And then if you listen to them, obviously it's probably none of our, taste in music, but that guy did right. It's nobody's taste in music.
The songs are garbage.
They probably made Vulcan very happy. Let's put it that way.
That version, Smoky Mountains, Lonely Mountain or Smoky, whatever the name of the damn song from The Hobbit's been overdone too many damn times.
Cosplayers sing it badly.
Yeah, but the whole breaking the dishes ones, I thought they did a great rendition in the Hobbit movie. You don't hear anybody sing it though either.
Well, you know what is? I think that they did it better for breaking the plates in the original cartoon. I like it.
The Hobbit movie had made up characters in it.
You know what though? I look at they're two different mediums. They're two different things. They're on their own thing. But I was listening to.
It was fan service.
What is Jason? The guy who owns Judge Dredd now, Renegade Studios or whatever. Anyway, he does the modern history. Anyway, he was talking to Lindsay Page, and they're talking about stuff, and they said a lot of times whenever you sign a contract, they'll say they consult, and they said all it really means is they call you up, ask you a couple questions, and then they're going to do whatever they're going to do anyway. They just take the consultants
based loosely on the creation of such and such writer, blah blah blah. You sign your thing saying your name shows up in the credits.
Yeah.
And if the show's really bad, then you write and say, hey, if you're Ben Bova, you say, get my name off your show. You ruined my creation.
Oh, the guy who did Frank Miller asked them to take his name off of 300. Watchmen, Sin City, Sin City, something the next sequel to Sin City. Every movie that's been out that he's done, except for the animated movie Batman Returns, he doesn't want anything to do with.
Well, because no one wants to just do a copy of something without putting their own 2 cents in, without thinking about, why didn't the original author do what you just thought of originally? Oh, you're so creative. You thought of something that they didn't contemplate.
Even you said you prefer the atom bomb ending than the squid ending.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, if they would have stayed with what Frank Miller wanted, you would have got calamari, not the bomb.
But even Frank Miller actually said that he preferred the movie ending.
Well, and here's the thing: is do you have the core cards? I know that you don't like Conan that much, but to be fair, the original movie for Conan got the essence of Conan, which is what I liked about it. Now I can argue about.
Oh, yeah.
I've been rereading them, and he's amoral.
You talking about the 80s version?
The first one, not
John Milius. He says he knew nothing about Conan when he was asked to do the thing, so he had to read all the Conan books pretty much.
And he
'Cause
said that
all he knew about Conan was the the Franzetta paintings. That's all he knew about Conan in the 70s.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
A good
and
start.
what I did like about it is that he did, and he because I have the commentary, where he and Arnold are talking. He said, "Well, I just kind of mix Call and Conan together, from all the stories." It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah, I mean the main bad guy in the Conan movie was Cole's one of the enemies that Cole's dealt with like 1,000 years before. You're right, Kilrabe. I didn't. Yeah, when you said that, made me rethink it. I thought it was a Frank Miller. It feels like Frank Miller.
Different egomaniac.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of aliens, Starship Troopers, which changed a lot from the book. Well, for the aliens, I actually like the way they did the aliens better than the way that
they were just spiders in the original, right?
They were spiders that were born, but they had all technology. Whereas I kind of like the organic feel that they went. I'm not saying it's the greatest movie, but I like the way they went towards organic rather than trying to say, okay, you're just born and we just hand you a gun, which is how the original book was.
Right.
Well, the original book was really weird.
What was that? Sorry?
The original Starship Troopers book was pretty bizarre. Not in just one. Pretty much everything about it was weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't do drugs.
Wait a minute. Have you read Stranger in the Strange Land? Wait a minute. Have you read Stranger in the Strange Land?
No, he hasn't.
That was written for the hippie crowd.
Oh, okay, yeah. Go read that one, and then go read Starship Troopers, and come back and say, no, Starship Troopers is pretty normal.
He wrote that one for the people that.
Well, you said it was
Starship
written
Troopers.
for the hippie crowd, so I already have an idea.
It's weird, but it's good. But I got the unabridged. The other one I do not recommend reading is Time Enough for Love. He goes off in those where he starts having sex with his clothes. He goes way out there.
I don't like modern sci-fi. It's just
Some
people love it. The 70s was full of that kind of stuff.
Starship Troopers, the movie. I think the only reason why I continued watching it over and over and over is yes, I know this actress is batshit crazy. I know that she is batshit crazy. Everybody in this panel, except for Jack, will know that she's batshit crazy. But Denise Richard is fucking hot.
I actually like the other actress better.
Diane Miller.
Dina Meyer?
Dina Miller. Yeah, I'd spend time with both of them. I don't care. I mean, I'm not picky in that subject.
You know what? I'm kind of. This is why I stopped dating. Because I kind of went. You know what? I have a son, and I'd rather put more effort in him than try and deal with the crazy of women. But you know what?
I get it. I'm no longer married. I get it.
There was that one. I'm trying to think of what some other great bug movies. Anyone remember? Was it Tales from the Dark Side or where they used to have some of those weird, like some of the stuff from The Outer Limits, where they had the aliens in there?
Oh yeah, Outer Limits touched on aliens. Oh my god, I thought it was an Outer Limits episode, and I found out I was wrong. But it was a George Clinton from. It was George Clinton had some sci-fi show he was attached to back in the early 90s, Boogie something, right?
Okay.
And they had an alien episode where they didn't really show the aliens, but the alien ship came down and says, we will unpollute your oceans, we'll clear out your skies, we'll fix all your problems, but we only want one thing. And the nations of the world says, what's that one thing? We'll give you whatever you want. We want all your black people.
What?
I shit you not. It was an episode.
George Clinton's a black guy. He was I mean, okay, but
yeah. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? I'm like, I don't know, 17 when I see this episode. I'm like, what the hell am I watching?
Why do they want?
This was before woke was woke. This was,
Well. Has anyone watched?
Every group has been told that. I mean, Mars needs women. Mm-hmm. Give us all your schleps. Give us all your smart people. Give us all, every little group of humanity's been called into space at some point in these things. So it was just a matter of time before black people got picked.
What
it was their turn.
We're forgetting one great episode in the 90s, and it was a cartoon. How to Serve Humans.
You brought it up? How did it end? So I don't have to watch it.
The world government says sure, take them.
Then what happened?
Here, have all the black people. We don't want them
So
anymore.
yeah, take them. And well, we don't know what is before them. They might be destroyed, or they might go into a paradise world where racism and everything is, no longer a thing. ...
So the show just ends with the
that's it. I mean, there was like
that's weird.
It was a 30-minute show, and it was just weird. I had to watch it for a film class.
Anyone remember food involved, or sex, or repopulation, or slave trafficking, something?
Did they ever say why they needed all the world's black people?
Something about their pigmentation.
Did they have a ship big enough to do it? That's the other thing.
Oh yeah, it was like
there's like 1 billion people in Africa.
Right? No, it was like it kind of looked like the shit from Independence Day.
Or did they only want African Americans?
They said black. We'll take all your black.
Because in England, what are they called in England? They're not called African Americans, are they?
British Africans? I think they're just British. I think we're the only country.
Everyone has a stupid name,
Probably just black people.
Yeah, I think we're the only, and I might be wrong. I very well could be wrong, but I think we're the only country that divides African American, Irish American, Scottish American. Or the rest of the world, you just are what you are. If you're born, raised
in England, they call
British.
In England they call people from India Asians.
Well, India is part of technically.
But there's a difference in we do. Well, it used to be Oriental here in the U.S. So all of a sudden they're like,
no, it used to be Celestials here.
Usually the Asians weren't India. Asians would be China, that kind of area.
It was Oriental, remember that, and then they changed that over because everyone.
Now it's South. Now it's Pacific Rim, and then that's racist. You can't say that.
Wait a minute. Well, I'm
Oriental roughly is like east.
At the end of the day, I look at it this way, and I was telling,
Well,
no, I could tell my son. He's like, well, blah blah. I said, son, go talk to someone to see how they actually think. Stop trying to listen to other people to tell you how someone thinks. In
1984, you had Oceania, East Asia, and Eurasia.
1984 is a really brave new world.
So Asia was kind of a thing.
What are Russians is the good question.
East Asia.
Or Western Asians.
No, they're Viking. They're Viking Asians.
It went Oceania, and then it went Eurasia, and then it went East Asia, and then it went back to Oceania. There was only three massive
because Eurasia was
areas.
It was the Soviet Union, and then all of Europe, and then East Asia was like China and Japan. When you think of the Asian people,
and Hawaii, probably.
No, Oceania probably had Hawaii.
No.
Oceania was basically North, Central, South America.
I'm pretty sure
and the UK.
Because Oceania was, or at least according to the thing, it was like Oceania was you had Great Britain and the United States and all Britain's colonies, and they merged into one country, and then they annexed Latin America for some reason, and that's Oceania.
Yeah. Are we playing?
So they 100% have. Unless they
you build your armies in Australia. That's what you do.
Well have you ever played? Ever played Risk 2210?
No.
Because that one's really weird because you've got lunar bases, you have undersea bases. I enjoyed it because you can.
That one has good minis. I like the minis from that game. I use them for traveler.
Okay.
From what game?
The Risk
2210. It's I like it better than regular Risk because you get commanders, and the commanders each do different things. Like if you get a sea commander, you can now go to underwater, and the only people that can go into waters if they have a sea commander. So that makes a difference on where you can start off. So you don't have to start off in Australia. And Australia has more than one entrance to it now because you can go into water.
I want to say there's a separate map for the moon or something like that.
Yes, there is.
Can somebody please explain to me why this map is disgusting? I don't want to look at it anymore. I'm looking at the 1080 risk map, and it makes me want to die.
Well, there's different editions of that game. So which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at multiple, and they all make me want to vomit.
Okay, and why?
Because they're awful.
Earth is nuked, so it's also been terraformed a bit. So
okay, that makes more sense.
Well, no. Yeah. See, here's the thing.
He's pretty picky. You should see him looking at globes and stores. He just starts, you can just see the steam coming out of his ears.
Yeah, but if they're decorations, they're knickknacks. They're not for use. They're just for. I want one.
What's the point of having
I'll put it behind me.
Oh, I have a ball on my desk, and it has.
Because you want to travel around it in 80 days. That's all it's for.
So
you take your cane and you point. This is where we will be in 80 days, and then you do the montage.
Okay. So I'm gonna bring up something which I know you're gonna hate, which is I do GIS sometimes, and I remember getting chewed out because I use colors, and this captain comes over and he's yelling at me. Why did you pick these colors? This looks like a cartoon and blah, blah, blah. And he was like slamming on my desk. And so I went into the meeting talking to the guys who saw my map. You know what they said? We liked it. We could see it from 15 feet back. And so when you make maps, you're making maps for people to see, not for necessarily to be aesthetically pleasing. And that's the problem that people have. So that's why I look at a lot of stuff, just like I use pink on everything when I do my maps for locations. Because there is almost no natural color pink whenever you take an aerial. So there are people like, oh, okay. But yeah, everyone's like, I hate that. And then they come back to me and go, well, yes, but it shows up really well on a map. I said, that's why I use it. Yeah. It's not because I like the color. I do it because people can see it.
The maps have a function and they have an audience. So you kind of have to know who's going to be using the map and what the map's going to be for.
Well, and if you're going to the Air Force, make sure you know PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah.
Because I hate saying this, and I really do, but after dealing with the Army and the Air Force isn't any better, I am not impressed by the current military compared to when my father was in. So
yeah, I was about to say, after watching a video last night with Matt about how the Air Force boot camp looks like, Jack, I'm really not worried about you whatsoever.
Yeah,
Shots fired. Shots fired. Damn, dude.
No. Just don't do anything to ruin your knees. That's all I say. Just don't do anything to ruin your knees, and you'll be fine.
Alien, that reminds me, the Alien in Independence Day was kind of cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Was that an alien in a mech suit, or was that an alien in another alien?
I don't remember. The alien was sort of like in a foggy room, and he grabs Brent Spiner and shoves his face against the glass, and it's kind of cool.
I want to say they actually had more than one race, to be honest. The thing that Will Smith was dragging and the things that were in the mothership, they kind of almost a little bit.
Those things were inside the thing that Will Smith was dragging. It was like a organic. Yeah, it was a tech biosuit. It was an organic. Yeah, it was a tech biosuit.
Okay, can I say one thing here, just for what Connell said that one time about 15 when he was 15 years old and girls were around and aliens. Let's just go with our favorite one, which is Life Force. The aliens.
I never saw it. It was always on TV, and I was always like watching the middle of it, so I would change the channel because I want to see the whole thing at once, not just. It was the naked girls walking around in that movie.
Yes, but if you look at her natural form, she's an alien vampire.
I vaguely remember that
plane
movie.
Or something. She was a stewardess on a plane, and she's getting people to go on the plane.
For which one?
I don't want to give away the ending. Something about a plane. Everyone's going on the plane.
Were there snakes on the plane? Sorry.
Or either the movie starts out with the plane.
No. They're in like a space shuttle or something going over towards like a comet or something like that. And they find out it's actually a spaceship. And they go inside and they find 3 humans that's life force, how it starts off. But in the meantime, they see all these floating what look like vampires all in the ship. They're just floating in space. It all looked desiccated.
That movie came out, what, in the 60s or 70s?
80s.
80s.
80s? Okay.
You're way off.
Hey,
Way off.
you know, I barely remember it.
Okay, you had all those movies back then. You had the Total Recall. You had the RoboCop, Aliens. Everything was like just popping up out of nowhere.
Oh, speaking of the really bad one, what was the
all original IPs?
What was the Roger Corbin really bad one that had the
Battle Beyond the Stars?
Yeah. Oh, well, it was Battle Beyond the Stars, which I kind of liked for some of the aliens in there too, along with the Last Starfighter.
The ship with
I was just thinking that movie. That was a really good one. Actually, you know, alien movies. Yeah, I know this is don't do the rubber face.
That one had the lizard.
But Alien Mine, Enemy Mine.
Yeah.
That one had lizard people too.
That was a really good movie.
I liked Enemy Mine. What was the other?
Dennis Quaid?
They had a language and everything. It was kind of cool.
I mean, there were some other ones that were. I'm trying to think of the. You know, of course, the Battle Beyond the Stars is basically the Seven Samurai in space.
I've heard that before. It looks like I'm going to be painting again tonight since I got started.
Yeah, lizard people were a huge thing in the 70s and 80s.
You mean like with V?
Well, it's like, are they truly aliens if they lay eggs, or if they're mammals? You know, lizards that are mammals.
They live with a hyper.
I put the glasses on. Procreate, breed, consume. It looks.
The little guy needs to watch that movie because it was very ahead of its time.
They had a good fight scene in that movie.
Chew bubble gum and kick asses.
And I'm
all out of bubble gum.
That wasn't, you know, what I John Carpenter's usually hit or miss with me. I either like it or I don't. And sometimes I really like the ideas that come with it, even if they're not executed well. But yeah, They Live and Thing were my two favorite John Carpenter. Actually, I didn't mind Starman either.
Starman, was that with Mark Hamill or because there's another movie out there with what's his name? He wasn't Tron and Big Lebowski. Jeff Bridges. There was another alien movie, a sci-fi movie with him in it.
Yeah, it was Jeff Bridges with Starman, and then I think they made a series out of it.
It was just a guy, and he was a fish out of water.
Yeah, they've done that, you know, many times. They're doing that right now, kind of with, I forget his name, the guy from Firefly who played Wash.
Oh, on Sci-Fi.
Resident Alien or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of tired and burnt out, in my opinion.
I'm hit or miss. I mean, some of the episodes are. He is a great actor. I will never say anything about the guy. He is a wonderful actor. I liked him as Wash. I liked him in the other movies, but I don't blame him. It's like
right. You can't blame him. Well, I mean, you can, but
he's just doing what the writer's right. He's, you know.
Well, he could just not take the job. You know, if he thinks it's crap, you know. But then again, if he's not working, he kind of, might feel he's.
Everyone from Firefly just takes whatever they can get. They don't care.
You have to keep putting your faces out there. I mean, that's the only way for actors to work is to keep putting your face out there.
Actually, Morena Baccarin, who played Inara from Firefly, she's actually really selective. She's one of the few who is actually selective. She's turned down all kinds of stuff.
Which one was she?
Inara, the companion.
Oh, well, she's not that picky. I've seen her do some stupid shit movies. I've seen her do some
maybe recently. I mean, right afterwards, she was very picky.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least that's what I heard. I could be wrong, but she's on my list of 3. So, I got to stand up for her every once in a while.
My whole thing is I have to take women in their prime, because I can't look at them now and like, no, you're just way too old.
Yeah, eventually she'll have to switch gears and do the Madonna thing where she has to face facts she's old. She's gonna have to take old parts.
Yeah.
She could do it. She could be in a Game of Thrones in space kind of a thing where she just kind of stands around
You need to know
as an old senator type character or something.
what was the one that did what? Olena Martell. And you look at her in the 60s, and she was absolutely hot. And then, of course, she's old and decrepit now, but fantastic actress in that part. I loved her.
Yeah, I made the mistake. I've been watching, thanks to James L. I've been watching Blake 7, and I made the mistake of watching some videos of them after the show, and I'm just like, oh dear God.
I mean,
I know they weren't really supermodels back in the day. That one blonde actress, she was, very attractive, obviously, that's what they got her for. And she had a cute smile, etc. And the girl who played Callie was, but oh my Lord.
Speaking of, go ahead.
I realize it's been a lot of years, most of my life, but you would never guess that was them. I mean, maybe, like I said, the blonde actress, I forget her name. She had a really weird last name. And I'm like a little over halfway through the series, and I'm like, this is just gonna get worse, isn't it? I'm gonna get sucked in, and then boom, season 4, it's all over.
What's wrong with that?
I love the show, but I made the mistake of watching some videos, and I know how it's gonna end, and I'm like, oh dear God, no.
Okay. Speaking of aliens, how can we forget Galaxy Quest with all their little different aliens that they have in there?
I only saw that movie one time. I've been meaning to watch it again. Hey, Bruce, what's happening, buddy? I was just kind of technically talking about you because he just did a movie review of Galaxy Quest, and I didn't go and watch it because.
Oh, Weaver was in it. Yeah, Sigourney Weaver from Aliens was.
No. We're talking about the aliens. Do you remember the big rock alien, and then the ones that were all like.
Rock.
Yeah. Oh God.
And then they had the tentacles, and I love the one part where they're just like, "Ooh," when there's tentacles coming over, and what is it? Tony Shalhoub just looks down like, and then he goes back to kissing her.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, James L. She definitely stole the show.
Going back to Firefly really quick, though, the actresses, we're talking about the actresses for that one. Yeah, there was a lot of beautiful women in the main cast of Firefly. I will not, but she was in a guest appearance where she was a child bride, and everybody got pissed at Mel because they thought he married her. Her name is like Kristen Hacks or something like that. Later on in her life, she did a show called Mad Men, where she played a red. What? I would not kick her out of bed for anything.
Yeah, the redhead. Yeah.
She's a very good actress. She played a very good 1960s tough broad secretary, and that show was amazing.
I never watched
as Firefly. Mad Men's one of the best shows ever made on television.
I used to watch it with my mom up until she passed away, and then I had a hard time watching the rest of it.
Oh, fair enough.
And speaking of the the aliens, the little rock dudes or whatever, when they come down, like, oh, they're friendly, and they're like, no, you got to run away. That was one. You
know what? What's another good one that we're all probably forgetting? No. Tremors is good, but
Critters is crap.
Oh, I thought you said Tremors. The Men in Black.
Tremors is awesome.
Men in Black had some great aliens. I know most of them. Technically, we're kind of humanoid in a lot of cases, but I think that movie is one of the best examples of just a plethora of all kinds of freaking aliens. When Will Smith walks into the behind the doors for the first time and sees it was like the cantina scene from Star Wars for the first time. They did some work, but that's led me to a question I have for you guys. What do you think the future is for aliens? Do you think it's going to be just CGI and people in rubber masks, or animatronics?
Can I? You know what?
CGI.
I'm going to go with CGI, but I'm going to say this much: is I think that what they're going to do is did any of you just see some of the mock-ups that they had for Neil the guy who did District 9, if we're going to talk about aliens, the guy who was going to do that, and they never greenlit it. And Sigourney Weaver was saying that she was more than willing. The stuff that they had planned in there looked pretty cool. But I agree with you. It's real.
They got her in CG, so they got her. So that's the Alien 2.5 movie.
Here's the thing. When it comes to CGI versus practical magic, as long as Jim Henson's factor or company is still around, it might be TV movies.
Yeah.
But it's still going to be a thing.
Well, you know what? That's what I liked about Farscape is they used everything. They used CGI, they used animatronics, they went with real practical effects, and you can tell the difference. Yeah, it makes a real difference in that because just because there's lighting, there's other aspects, and you know what
shadows and textures.
I don't know for Alien. I mean, I'll be honest with it. I think the real problem with Alien, like most things, is that they're trying to make the Alien exactly like the first movie. And I said, this is why Alien and Aliens did so well, is they're actually two different genres. One's an action genre, and the other one is a horror genre.
Between Alien and Aliens are really two different movies. Yes, it has the same actress in it, but you got the horror suspense sci-fi versus the horror adventure movie sci-fi. And I mean, it's like with what was I going to say with Men in Black? Men in Black, they should have just stopped with the first movie. The second and third, they should never have done. And with Aliens, I go first one, second one, then stop. The prison one was weird. It was not. It was supposed to be good.
2.5 was supposed to fix Alien, so it makes 3 and 4 never happen.
But Alien 3 did not bother me when I saw the extended version. But when I went
better?
It's much better. But when I went to the theatrical, I felt so cheated and angry after going to see that one because they killed off the main characters, which I'm still bitter about, especially when you had the Alien comics that went over and told the whole story of the Alien War. If they would follow the comics that they had from what was that? Was it Image or Icon? Whatever, whoever did those. If they'd follow the comics,
I think it was Dark Horse. Dark Horse.
Yeah, Dark Horse.
Pretty much all of that stuff.
I like it when characters die. I hate it when they bring them back to life, though. Jean Grey. Jean Grey died in like 1981.
Was it? Yep. Which one was it? It was
they find an excuse to bring it back.
So Superman gets information that there's a lost Kryptonian out there in space. So he goes and he gets a spaceship and goes out. This is a graphic novel. He goes out in space to find her. Well, he finds a colony of Kryptonians. And unannounced to him, the xenomorph is on said planet. He doesn't have the Earth Sun to power him up. So he's losing power every minute he's there. And he ended up getting a space hugger attached to his face. And they were about ready. He survived. Of course, he survived. But the way that they did the comic book was absolutely fucking amazing. Sort of like the Batman versus the Predator.
Here's the problem. I don't want my superheroes. Leave them in their own genres, in their own universes. I want my dystopian. I understand that those are alternate, but here's what gets me. Dark Horse had the entire story. I was watching Alien 3. I didn't actually read the comics at the time, but he was going over it. And they had the whole thing where they come back and you find out that Newt they put her in an insane asylum. And you find out that Hicks is kind of relegated to. I said they did a good storyline, and I think the problem nowadays, and this is I know I keep harping on this, is these people have not learned how the proper way to tell a story, the 3-act system, because they all rejected Shakespeare. I don't care whether you like Shakespeare or not. They don't go through the hero's journey. They don't do the 3-act storyline. They don't follow any of the normal stuff. They're like, I'm smarter than all these people. I'm like, you have to know the rules first to know where you can break them. Because if you don't, you go off somewhere and you get, what is it? I Am Starfire or something like that, where this entire little kid thinks that she gets superpowers and she's pissed off. And then she gets it. It's like, oh, look, I'm so good because now I have superpowers. I'm like, you know what made Superman great? Was Superman did not need his superpowers to be a hero. He had the heart no matter what.
Have you seen Miss Marvel? Like, not Mrs. Marvel, the like the big Captain Marvel, but no, the Muslim woman, Marvel's first Muslim superhero. Have you seen the first comic? And not just the first comic, but the first 3, 4 maybe. They are horrendous. The way she gets her powers. So the first panel is a sandwich. The very first panel, she's looking at a sandwich and says, I really want this sandwich. I just can't wait to eat this sandwich. But then her super Muslim friend's like, nah, you can't eat that sandwich because we're Muslim and you can't eat that. It's like, damn, I wish I wasn't a Muslim, because if I wasn't a Muslim, then I could eat this sandwich. And then this guy...
Trust me. There's been shitty comic books from the get-go.
It's like third grade writing.
Yeah.
I've lived in Iraq. Now, admittedly, I was under the military stuff, but we worked with Kurds and Iraqis all the time. And it was like, okay, you have to, and here's the interesting thing. Christians, Jews, and Muslims in that area generally follow the exact same dietary stuff, with the exception that whether people realize it or not, with the exception that the Christians tend to drink alcohol, and sometimes they would have pork, but not very often. But if you look at it, they like stuff that we eat here, they do not touch. They do not touch crawfish or shellfish or a lot of these things, because a lot of it is a historic background that it was that food would poison you, because and that's what people forget about. Sorry.
Well, tomatoes. Look at tomatoes.
Tradition.
Tomatoes up until the 19th century thought were toxic. You don't eat tomatoes. So they were pretty to put on your plate. They're pretty to put on this, but you didn't eat them. And the reason why the people got sick from tomatoes is because when you put tomatoes on lead or pewter plates, the chemicals between the plate and the tomato would make it toxic. We didn't understand. Food is my thing. I'm sorry. We did not understand the chemistry of the food we're messing with until the last 100 years, maybe 200 years.
And it gets even more interesting because tomatoes and is it nightshade or are generally from the same family, but one's edible and one's literally poisonous. So just looking at it, they're like, no. And there was weird things like potatoes, even though we've taken it as people wouldn't eat potatoes for centuries until I think the 100-Year War, just because it's interesting on what it takes to get people to eat
every
different.
other fucking dumbass goes out there during mushroom season. I think this is a morel. I'll take it home and eat it anyways. If you're not a botanist, don't go pick mushrooms. There's a store.
I and those are the things that I look at. Well, but how many times? Well, here's the big problem I know here in the United States, because they've had a couple of issues. I know we're talking about food now. Is mushrooms that look like one thing in Asia are completely different here. And, so what looks like fine there. But the other thing is sometimes people say stuff is poisonous and you find out it's not poisonous, it's hallucinogenic, which are two different things. So,
yeah.
I still wouldn't eat any of them.
I like mushrooms and I was not a big fan of mushrooms until my 30s when I went to Hungary and they decided to make it. But I'll tell you this much. If you can grow oyster mushrooms, which are very easy to identify, those are awesome. I love oyster mushrooms and
I actually like saddle mushrooms, and you can find them. You can find them out in the woods if you know what you're looking for. They're common. I've done the last 17 years of wilderness survival stuff for the sport I'm in, so I completely get. But back to Alien.
Yeah, back to Alien.
My favorite was what was it? One of my favorite crossovers. It's a crossover. Spaceballs did a crossover with Aliens, where at the end of the movie,
sounds gay.
I'll show you gay.
With the top hat.
Anything with Spaceballs is gay.
I appreciate it for the humor.
I will be back in just a minute. I want to get something. Hold on. You guys go ahead.
The Millennium Falcon.
Mel Brooks always has to have Mel Brooks always has to have a scene in his movies where they got the top hat and the cane and the tux and they're doing the stage thing. Every movie, it's got to have it.
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that. I love that. Let's go for it.
It's a minute long. I don't really. I still love it. Like, what did he have? He had the special. He's like,
yeah.
And I like the fact they used John Hurt. The original actor.
they Mel Brooks went and would talk to George Lucas like, hey, I'm about ready to do a rip off of your movie, and George Lucas is like, can I see the script? And he's like, sure, whatever. And he loved it so much he allowed them to have the Millennium Falcon at the restaurant at the ship on the same base as the restaurant at the end of the movie. I mean, so that just shows you that George Lucas has got a sense of fucking humor.
Well, he did the same thing with Robot Chicken. In fact, he did some of the voices in Robot Chicken when they did the Star Wars stuff. And I think he did the same thing with the Blue Harvest, when they did their stuff. I still love the fact when we talk about aliens and Roger, like, have we really run out of aliens that we have to bring characters from other shows?
I told Jack this in the Star Trek. It was a Star Trek First Contact. In the first 5 minutes of the film where they're fighting a huge Borg cube, or 20 minutes, I don't know what part it is. If you stop it, you'll see the Millennium Falcon, show up in Star Trek First Contact, because the same person who was working on the special effects for that movie was also working on Star Wars when they're not rebooting it, but doing something with the Star Wars movies.
Oh.
I'll be honest, everyone went over for Borg, but I remember being in 8th grade, so right before the Next Generation came out, and I drew the equivalent of a Borg cube with the whole thing, and everyone's like, that won't fly, that can't do anything, it's not aerodynamic in space. I'm like, well, space is a relative vacuum, so what's the big deal? Anyway, and I'm just laughing at it because the Borg showed up like 3 years after I drew this on a piece of paper, because I used to get, you get the graph paper and you start drawing it, and it's really easy to draw a cube on graph paper. So
yeah.
Well, the Bumblebee has no right to be able to fly either, so.
You know what? I did like the Transformers. That's the question.
Literally light.
Which one?
Bugs. I was gonna go on a huge thing about why the whole bees shouldn't be able to fly. They're not aerodynamic. But I realized nobody wants to hear me talk about insects for an hour. So.
Well, it depends on the type of insect.
Remember, what was that? Back to going with aliens. Oh, what was that movie? That was such a soft porn.
Well, bees are like hummingbirds. They just
no.
They need precision control so they can stick their things in the flower. That's
no. Wait, what you're talking about was, but that was the Roger Corbin one, where they were. In fact, it's interesting to listen to it. What was that called? I think it was Roger Corbin was really bad, where they had this monster that was like made with DNA and.
Species.
Oh, Species was the other one. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember watching that. My stepdad was really into sci-fi alien movies growing up. God, really into them. And he brought home this one. He's like, I don't know if you're old enough to watch this. And I was like 16 at the time when that movie came out. And I'm like, but it's not my problem. And he puts it in, and I'm like, what the hell am I watching?
She was hot. She was hot at the time.
Yeah, at the time.
At
the time.
Well, I'm not the attractive man that you see before me. I was much more attractive when I was younger.
Oh, Jesus.
Magnet.
Before I blew out my knee and broke my hand boxing. Oh, yeah. I used to, be a Greek, look like a Greek god when I go out and sunbathe. Now I look like a different kind of Greek god. The one who serves wine and hands out grapes.
So you went from like Ares to Dionysius.
Yeah. It's like, fuck. What about you, Sean? Were you a beachgoer as a kid?
A beachgoer?
Yeah.
No. I went to the beach, but I wasn't a sun worshiper.
I'll tell you this.
You'd be glad my dad's not here when you mention that. He'd be like, oh, I used to live at the beach. Did I not tell you? I used to live at the beach. I'd spend every single weekend at the beach. Every time you mention the beach.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I assume that your father was a ladies' man, which I never was. So.
I had a charming Irish accent when I moved back to the States. It helped. It polished over all other hiccups.
I will say this. I could be in any setting, not just a beach setting.
I don't like the idea of making
beach goth.
I already had a sidekick named since an Ultra Girl. Carl even gave her one of her old costumes in addition. Yeah, I mean, Miss Marvel came out with the last 10 years, I think. I've just completely bypassed her as a character. She reminds me of a female version of Mr. Fantastic, only that she's a Muslim and she has the Marvel attached to her character's name.
Marvel and DC are both garbage now. Everything's gay.
The worst part about Miss Marvel isn't even like, oh, by the way, I'm Muslim. Did I forget to mention I'm Muslim? And they mention that she's Muslim 15 times.
They mention it like in every frame.
Yeah, every frame is like, I'm Muslim.
Because the writer's racist, so that's what they're gonna do.
No, but the worst part
Game over, man.
How she gets her powers. So first, she disobeys her parents by going to some party. These bully characters spike her drink with some alcohol, and she's like, "Oh no, I drank a single sip of alcohol. I need to run away." And then she does. She says like, "How dare you? You're mean and you're sexist." And then she leaves. And she's leaving, and then gas floods the entire city. And then
because of the
don't remind me.
Literally just fate shows up and says, this spoiled, selfish Muslim woman who constantly mentions how Muslim she is, despite not actually being very Muslim, we need to give her superpowers. Why? Because fate decided she needs superpowers. Because they wanted to write some teen romance drama story about a Muslim girl, but they didn't actually want to write a superhero story, but they had to. Like, you know what? She's a superhero. She just becomes a superhero because fate decided she needs superpowers. And the very next...
As I said before, Jack, she is not the first of the throwaway characters that comic book companies have made. She won't be the last. I'm not saying she's a horrible character. I'm sure there's some Muslim girl out there that enjoys her. You know, to each their own. She wasn't made for people like me. She wasn't made for you. She was made for a certain diagramic.
You know what's weird?
She was made after Stan Lee. Stan Lee has a set of rules for making a superhero.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You know what's weird is back in the day, there used to be a lot of other kinds of comic books that would have perfectly suited, you know, this radical agenda. The true romance comics. The detective stories, not necessarily for them, but you know, they had war comics, they had all kinds of other comics, and now it's, you know, you got superheroes and you got hentai. That's like all it is. You know,
well, all the weirdos took over Marvel and DC, and what they do is they go back in the Marvel Handbook universe issues and they look up every freaking superhero and supervillain to see who's gay, who's not gay. And they've determined that actually everyone's gay. It was so easy.
Well. Here's the problem that I have with a lot of it is and I got to give credit to Ethan Van Sciver when the way he was describing and how he did Green Lantern. I didn't know anything about the character. They told me to draw for him, so I went back and I read all the comics to understand why people loved Green Lantern. And then that's what he was doing. And I said, these people don't go back. You know, that's what gets me. You should be going back and trying to capture the specific. When I saw them talk about, what was the one where, well, I want Bruce Wayne to be, what we're going to do in high school, and the joke, we're going to do this love triangle, and Bruce Wayne is going to be, and I said, no, what's really happening is you want to do your romance porn, and no one's going to pay you for it, and somehow, because you check enough boxes, and to be fair, neither Warner Brothers, though things may change, neither Warner Brothers nor Disney care about those. They're doing it for ESG points. See, people forget about this. ESG is what's pushing all this stuff, and now it's starting to get pushed back. It's because what they're going to do is they say, "How woke are you?" And they're doing the same thing with Dungeons and Dragons. How woke are you? And all they have to do is say, "Why, look at this game that we've done that checks all the boxes."
They don't use the word woke anymore. They just say your ESG score.
Yep,
basically. Woke has lost its meaning now. It's overdone. So
it was like a couple years ago. Is check your privilege. I'm like, I have privilege. Where was this?
Yeah, ask me about the female agenda. That kind of nonsense. Now it's like 10 times worse. And it's just assumed now. You don't have to wear a shirt that says it. It's just assumed that that's baked into their head.
What bothers me about that is they say, well, you're privileged. I'm like, you only look at the top percent. Go look at the normal people around you. Well, they don't count. I said, oh, okay. So you just, because I hate saying this, because there's too many people out there that give us our whole thing of they're heavily overweight. They don't take care of themselves. They're in a dead end job, and like I said, when there's some poor kid that about half my age, and I mean literally almost half my age. He said, I want to do paintball. I said, sure, it was his birthday. I said, I hate to see, no one be out there when he goes doing paintball. We were running around and he falls down from exhaustion. I mean, just like running part of the way, he fell literally down from exhaustion as I'm shooting him. And I went, look, I'm not in a great shape and you really need to go out and work. Okay. I mean, it's one thing to say, look, I'm almost 50.
They were brought up by a smartphone. That's it.
Well, there's that. Well, too many people want to, whether it's fat acceptance or stuff, go out and work out. Your life will always be better if you work out. Whether we like it or not, doing something physical will make you better as long as you don't get injured. And you just
I always feel awkward when I climb in the pool, and that's basically how I exercise. Or I'm trying to lose weight. Mm-hmm. I blew up my knees. I can't run on a treadmill. I can't do bikes. So that really leaves lifting and swimming. And I always feel like I feel like a whale whenever I get into the water. But at the end of the day, I feel better. So,
and that's what gets me is these people want stories that encourage their worst traits, because that was the thing that got me about whether it's superheroes or heroes. They were aspirational. They were archetypes. They were the epitome of human beings, of what people could be. And the goal was to get there. And nowadays it's like, no, if you're that kind of person from the, let's say from the 30s, no, you have to be fat and overweight.
No, just Farrah Fawcett, Cheryl Tiegs, Cheryl Ladd, Victoria Principal. Yeah, just that era. You can't. My era is more Ava Gardner, Raquel Welch.
Lauren Bacall is still my favorite, but I agree with you on Raquel Welch and 10,000 BC.
Audrey Hepburn.
She was a weird one.
Yeah, the closest to that era for me would have been the woman who played Nova in Planet of the Apes.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh, she was hot. I mean, I know she's old enough to be my grandma now, but
she was perfect. Hot. What are you talking about? She was perfect.
The sci-fi movies always had a hot chick. They always had a hot chick.
Well, so does the James Bond movies.
Well, look at any of the women in back then. I don't care.
But that's being sexist, misogynistic. You can't have women looking like that in the movies.
Well, here's the thing.
I gotta go. You can't have eye candy anymore.
Well, here's what gets me and there's a reason that no one goes to see these movies anymore. Or I'm sorry, they still have pretty women. They just don't want to admit it, because let's be honest.
I'll go off topic and talk about human aliens for a minute.
Oh yes,
girls today are taught in school that all men are rapists. So you have to prevent yourself from getting raped by these guys. So what do? They make themselves look ugly as sin, or a lesbian, ugly as sin. One of the two. That way, no guy is going to want to have sex with them. Problem solved.
Well. Here's the
thing. It also feeds into the lowering the population agenda and several other agendas that are just.
You go to Barnes and Noble. All the YA books at Barnes and Noble are written about gays, lesbians, threesomes. These are like 11 and 12-year-old kids in these books doing this nonsense. And that's like accepted.
I can't say much. Stephen King's It.
No, I've never read it, but I've heard.
A bunch of 13-year-olds.
Yeah, well, that's one book.
Now or never.
Now it's all the books.
Yep.
You know what? I'll be honest. When I first went to California in the early 90s, and I walked into a bookstore and they had the gay and lesbian section, I was like, what? And now, like you said, now that's all that seems to be there. And you look at it like, why would I? It doesn't matter. For me, like, look, there's certain books I want to read and certain types of stories I want to read. Either I want to read nonfiction, or I want to read pulp fantasy, or I want to read science fiction. I mean, those are the way that I want it. And I don't want Harry Potter, regardless of what I think of the books. I actually think the books are pretty well done. I don't want to play in Harry Potter's world, and that's what D&D has become. And now you look at like their settings, and I'm like, no, I want the Conan style, which has magic.
Well, you want the grown women with the boobs.
I
and
do,
they're,
but
and they're cool, and they're cool with murdering things. They're like ninja fighters.
I read growing my daughter as a child. I believe that all parents should read to their children. I fully believe in that. And I didn't do Narnia. Like me and Shadow talked about this.
That's the thing.
What?
Read what to the kids though?
I read the Harry Potter books. I mean, they're fine for what they are.
Well, I mean, speaking of which, and I know that I did
like 20 years old though.
Anyone read Tark? Because my mother read that to me when I was 7 or 8. Tark
or Torg?
Tarik. Tark.
No, don't know what that is.
So Tark is written by a black author, and it has a black main character, and it follows the typical, his parents are murdered kind of thing, and he goes over and he does the training.
Zero to Hero.
It does the whole thing where he goes through the whole training to get revenge on the guy that did it. It's well done, and yet they talk about they want inclusion and everything, but nowhere do I see anyone trying to make that movie. And I went, wait a minute.
Because that's not what they want. That's not what they want. What they want is division. They want division.
No.
Well, but if you want to do check boxes, that would work perfectly. You can do those check boxes, and you can do it.
You have to race swap. You can't use it that way. You have to change it.
Well, and there's an actor now, director who's wrote
Quiet
and Get Out, who is basically, and I've heard this from both sides of the line, so whatever. Is this gentleman, this black director / actor says, I will only have black people in my leads. He directs movies for black people. I'm like, whatever, yeah, it's slightly racist, but there's been white directors who more or less did the same damn thing.
But see, I don't mind if you write a character intentionally. I would be pissed off if you take Tark and you make him white, because there's a reason when you read these books, you expect a certain character, and I don't expect to be 100%, but be close enough in there. But if you're suddenly going to just do a race swap because you want to do a race swap, then what you're doing is, and this is what it really comes down to, is what you really want to do is you want to destroy the old stories so you can rewrite your own, which is what they're doing with comics and everything else. It's the same thing of all these people on Twitter who are about as dumb as could be. There are no strong female leads. I said, have you ever watched some of the old movies?
Yeah, Twitter.
Twitter's
cancer.
Well, it's what 2% of people who don't buy books. Just like I hate to say how much I spend on RPGs. Anyway,
I went down every book. I'm actually looking at one right now. But if I go down every book that I read, I'm sure I play hopscotch all over the fucking place. Yeah. I have a Quantum Leap book next to my Token books, next to an Anne Rice book, next to a Stephen King book, next to whatever. It's whatever catches my interest.
Exactly.
I mean, gay vampires. If you live that long, everybody's gay. Whatever. That shit just doesn't bother me. I don't care. I mean, we've been saying elves are gay since like forever, but people still want to play elves.
At the end of the day, is what it really comes down to is why are you destroying stories instead of making your own and making them compelling and interesting?
Because they can't create. All they can do is destroy.
No, the communist job is to tear down everything.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. But but that's the whole point is. And now they're looking like, well, why aren't people watching this? And speaking of a little side note of things I still enjoy, I've talked about this. Anyone seen the cartoon Primal?
Yeah,
I like that. I like that one, even though you want to talk about.
I don't dislike it. It's a bit much from time to time for me.
Oh, absolutely, it is. But that to me is just classic stuff that's meant more for adults. If you ever watch, Fire and Ice, very similar.
Wow. Yeah, I think. Yeah. That. Yeah. No, I
never understood the elves because they live for like 5,000 years and they do the same thing for like 2,000 years. For 2,000 years, I've been trying to figure out this magical ingredient. Blah blah blah. Whatever. Maybe time flies.
I think that's oversimplification. Because
like a waste of time.
I don't think Tolkien wrote them that way. But a lot of our stereotypes of the elves in RPGs comes from Gygax's absolute hatred of all the non-humans to begin with.
You know what? I don't. don't want to say they hate him. I think he got really burned out because of when they did the attack on when he got sued by Tolkien for using Hobbit.
Maybe, but also he had the distinct opinion that no character should ever go above 11th level.
Hey, really quick.
If you put those two together, you have a whole lot of negativity being funneled into a huge portion of his own game, where most of the people were wanting to play non-humans because it was something they could reach out with their imagination and stretch their creativity muscles or what have you. And a lot of these people just wanted it to be purely human. Okay, that's fine. Make that game, but they didn't until lately. Now it's a bigger thing.
The weirdos want to come into your game table, game session, and ruin it.
Shadow, I'm going to shoot the link to Bruce really quick. Give me a heads up.
He's more than welcome to come in.
I mean, I've been looking at this whole thing, and I understand.
Anyway, Shadow, I got to get going. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by. Do you have anything coming up in the near future?
No, just working on my book.
Okay, keep it up, man.
See you later.
Hey, real quick,
Shauner.
Damn it. I so want to pick his brain on a topic, but it can wait. Damn.
I know. Actually, you know what's interesting? Going back and rereading some of the stuff, which I completely skipped over as a kid.
I think so, James.
I was going over and counting the when you actually go read a lot, because Gygax actually puts in a lot of his design philosophy in the books, the DMG and the Player's Handbook, and a lot of us when we argue stuff are ignoring exactly what he says in the description of it because we look at the mechanics rather than the whole book.
Make your own fantasy line he has in it.
Well, it's not just that. Listen to what he says. Why does a combat go for 1 round, which is 1 minute? And he explains on the whole thing of why he does that. And I'm not disagreeing with why he does it. But I think that's one of the things that, just like, why do you put this in? What do you do here? Why do you do this? And he gives actually really good advice, which is why I think it's one of the better DMG. But yeah, and that's true. And that was the problem that I have with any of the games, which is why I don't mind the level limits. And when people remove the level limits, they forget that, in Tolkien, the whole point of Tolkien of why do humans go so fast is because they burn bright and very quickly. And when they die, they go to a different plane. They don't stay on Middle Earth, or they don't stay on that plane. They go somewhere else. The elves never leave, and people forget about that. And how about them aliens? Well, you know what? It's anything that Kirk did. Does it count as, what was the Arcturus or whatever in Aliens? But it's a guy. Well, it's not, with Frost.
Aliens, the first Alien movie, there was 4 guys and 1 female in that movie. And most people's answer is like, no, there was 2 females. No, if you watch the movie and they're doing the profiles of all the characters, I think it was the second one, but they were doing all the profiles of each character. Not Weaver, but the other woman was actually a dude, transsexual guy. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. It's not that I'm woke or social justice. That shit just never bothered me. I'm like, people live their own fucking life. It's not my problem.
You know what? As I get older, that's the way I am. I'm just like, don't encourage people to do things, especially children, that are very impressionable, that cannot be undone. That's what bothers me is, look, if Caitlyn Jenner wants to do her thing or whatever, look, you're a 65-year-old man when you decide to do that. That's on you. At this point, I don't care.
Yeah, to me, that's more sad than anything else.
But when you try and push this on my child and then try to hide it from me, I'm going to flip out on you because
my daughter asked me straight out because I've heard I'm not the only parent of recent children. She spent some time with my mom and heard some horror stories about my stepdad. And she came out, I was like, Dad, I don't know what I am now, but if I turn out to be a lesbian, are you going to hate me like Grandpa? And I'm like, baby, if you turn out to be a lesbian, that's on you. I will love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And,
But I mean, I'm gonna, part of my, with my son is like, okay, I don't know what where you are, but then again, you know what? In your teenagers, you have all sorts of weird feelings, and people don't know where you are. Some people do, but not everyone. And you're very impressionable, and you go off, and then later in life, you're like, well, that was stupid. But I want it to go, whether people go to the military or other things, I want people to be able to come back from that. And if you suddenly start taking drugs or do surgery, there is no coming back from that, unfortunately.
well, body morphia versus personality is a whole two different creature. If she wants to dress up, if she wants to be the 1980s, 70s town boy right now and dress up in blue jeans and dress like a boy, that's not going to hurt her whatsoever. That's just a thing kids go through. But she says, I want to do this or this with evolving her body. I'm like, not until you're after your age of 18. The moment I can't say anything, do whatever you want. But until then, the answer is no.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mind if she gets her ears pierced or something, whatever.
Well, and most of those will heal up. But, it's the same thing of whenever people talk about, because I've known several women that when they get older have tattoos and like, why did I get this tattoo? Yeah, think about what you're going to do. Hold off on it, and if you like something a year later, then put it on your body permanently. But
what's happening, Bruce? Welcome to the show.
Hey, how y'all doing?
We're all over the place tonight.
But is this silver enough for you?
That's getting there. That's getting there. Are you using a Vallejo silver?
No, I'm using a I don't know. It's a
craft paint.
Craft paint.
I think Vallejo silvers are good. My favorite metallics are probably Privateer Press.
Okay.
I'm about ready to drop as soon as I can. I'm about ready to drop almost $200 on the Mega Army paint kit.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Those are Army painter paints, and they separate really bad. You're better off to just buy like the $50 Reaper kits that have like 12 or 13 different paints, and they have them really well organized now for their sales. The first 6 are pretty much all you ever need. So yeah, you're going to spend about $300 on those, but you've got a mixture of miniatures, of miniature paints for metals. You've got some really good Roy G. Biv stuff. You have shades of brown. Not like all the shades of brown that I have. I have all the shades of brown they used for the original Quake 1996, which is amazing. But
you could also go if money's an issue. You can go on eBay and look up. They have these like not miniature cases, but paint cases. These are like little suitcases that come with 10 to 13 paints. I picked up a couple of them for $25. And then what I do is if you go to these people on eBay, they say shipping is free over like $40. So I'll buy one of those miniature paint cases for $25, and then I'll buy a couple of miniatures and save myself almost $20 on shipping.
There's a local guy who does really, really good work, and all he does is use apple barrel craft paint from Walmart.
That's what I got started on, and we still, we painted a lot of our dragons that way, and they came out fine. With craft paints, you should watch our video on craft paints because there are some tricks, and the big companies want you to think that the craft paints are crap. They're not great, but some of them actually are just like a gnat's wing undergrade.
Well, you know what?
Paints are just a little bit better than Army Mega paints, I think, and I would rather use the apple barrel paints than most. The only 2 paints that I would rather use in those would be
I'll get you here in just a second, James.
Either Vallejo or Reaper.
Yep.
And I'll shut up.
No.
Is the apple barrel crate stuff I didn't have too much problem with. Sometimes it's a little thick, which is my issue with it. But the problem that I did have is if I was putting in a airbrush, they do not work well for airbrushes. So
that's never going to be an issue for me there, Haas.
Okay, I'm bringing in James.
All right.
Hey,
Hey,
From all over
buddy.
the world.
Hey!
Glad to see you're feeling better, dude.
I'm
It
just in
wouldn't
a
be
lot
a
of
Saturday
pain.
night without a drive-by, or you're welcome to
Yeah,
stay as long as you
I'm
want.
just I'm just really, really sore. That's basically it. And that's my spine. It's all good. It's all good. I'm working through it. I don't have. I'm also on a break from my usual pain relief and just kind of trying to tough it out for various reasons because you can't use that kind of pain relief all the time.
oh,
Yep.
But yeah, fascinating alien conspiracy I heard last night. From the Chans, so it's semi-retarded,
Okay. Do tell.
Okay, so they were talking about like why do we hear more and more official disclosure of UFO sightings? Why are they explaining to us that we're pretty sure these things aren't human, etc., etc.? And there are a lot of theories bouncing around. It's us from the future, it's us from the past, it's from another dimension, blah blah blah. But some guy gave a reply that was really interesting, and he said, "We are one of only 3 species in the known universe with a capacity for spirituality. And the aliens are fascinated and terrified by this and keeping a very close eye on us because even though their culture is really advanced in every other way, they do not have this capacity and it bothers them greatly. They think we know something that they don't, and their culture has basically stagnated."
Wait a minute. You're saying Dark City.
Am I?
That was actually a really good movie.
It is Dark City. Go watch Dark City.
Okay.
Because they talk about the soul and they keep on experimenting on people trying to find out what the soul is, and they can't. They're. And I'll say this much: that little kid is the creepiest thing in there.
Right, okay.
No. The main actor with his fucking lazy eye always threw me off.
Well, I like Mr. Book, Mr. Hand. They call them, but the aliens would take over dead human bodies.
Yeah,
and that was but no, it's a really cool thing because it's got the mystery to it. I'm sorry, I gave it away partially, but it's got the whole mystery. It gave the whole mystery to it, but that's the focus of some of that. That's why are they going there? But it's a really good film.
Another thing is if you want to make your craft paints go further and like stronger, don't put Viagra in them, but you can buy similarly cheaply Winsor and Newton drawing ink, which has beautiful colors, and you can use that with your water to thin the paint, and it keeps the pigment strong, and it kind of tints it a bit.
All right, hey, James L., I don't put Viagra in my paint, but I do put it in my glue.
I was going to say, considering Viagra's like what, $45 a pill, just take the $45 and buy some better paint.
Well, I don't know about you, but my insurance would cover it. My doctor, I was talking to my doctor last week, and he's like, "Well, you're 38. What's your doctor?" I'm like, "Non-existent, but thanks for asking." He's like, "Well, people roughly your ages, start having issues with that. Let me see if your insurance will cover it." 5 minutes later, it does. I'm like, "Are you shitting me?"
I'm 37, and all I need to do is look at a map of the British Empire, and I'm good to go. So
wait. Doesn't that work in reverse now? I understand if it's an 1800s one, but in the current line,
just the peak period when we had about 23% of the Earth's landmass.
I was just making sure, because if you're like the past 4 hours, let me look at the current British Empire. I'm all
really quick. James.
It's a bus stop in Luton.
That makes sense. But James, I want to thank you. I'd love to thank you in person, but getting to Australia right now would be kind of rough. But I want to thank you for the figs that you're sending me.
Oh, that's all right. They go out on Monday, apparently. I've been talking to Nancy at Alternative Armies. They're very friendly because I was like, "Have you guys had a few orders sitting there for a while?" And they're like, "Yeah, but we know you kind of like order at weird times." So we just kind of let them.
I'm actually Alternative is one company I actually have to make an order with. They made a couple of miniatures that I just absolutely love, and I've only got one of it. I've been holding on to it for like 35 plus years. I'll show you a picture of it. My son knows what I'm talking about if he's still there. It's a sci-fi miniature of this like Inquisitor looking robed dude holding like this staff with a cross on it, and he's got like this frisbee of death in his other hand. You know what I'm talking about?
They do stuff. I wouldn't even call it 40K adjacent because some of the sculpts kind of predate
Yep.
that, but they definitely have the vibe. You know what I mean? And in more than one scale as well.
I do have to ask. I know you brought up the owlbear, but what made you decide to put the kukulin on the order?
Because we're cousins.
Okay.
I'm Anglo-Irish, man. We've got to represent.
Gotcha. That's fair enough. I'm like, I see the wolfhound.
Plus you're Connell Wolf, so like I had to put a wolf in there.
Oh yeah.
And there is an owlbear in there, but I didn't get the alternate version of Cucullin where he's doing his warp spasm thing and like turns into like a red demon. You know?
Yeah. I know the myth of him.
Yeah, it looks like a troll when he kind of wigs out.
Cal from Alternative Armies. You know what I'm talking about, Cal? I love that miniature.
It's funny because Cucullin, he was leader of the ancient Fianna during the.
I think I have it here. Hold on.
And I do a medieval reenactment called Dag here. You may or may not know of it, but I am actually in a group called the Fianna.
Yeah.
So when I saw like the Cucullin, I'm like, oh, son of a bitch.
I look, man. I buy good presents. It kind of makes up for the fact that I'm a bit of an ass generally. Like I'm actually really good at choosing presents, you know. But
James, you're so much more personable in reality, you know. You're like,
I don't want to make my.
With him.
Hold on a second, guys.
That's a big head.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have many of their 28s because I'm more of a 15s guy, but
he's got his hand, that gold thing in his hand. It's like an electronic tracking frisbee of death.
Yeah,
I freaking absolutely love this mini.
Yeah, good paint job.
Swan.
Thanks. I'm not done, but I've literally stripped this and repainted it 3 times. Yeah, and you know it's good and heavy. And there's a couple others in the command group that I want to get. And I saw it and I'm like on the new site because I thought, you know, I was looking on eBay for originals and I'm like, it don't need to be original. As a matter of fact, all that good old fashioned lead, you might as well just kiss it goodbye. One of these days, you know, probably in your lifetime, it's just going to rot and disintegrate. And you're going to pick up that painted miniature and squeeze it, and it's just going to crumble in your hand, and you're going to be left with nothing but a, you know, empty paint sack.
Well, pewter does. It's pretty soft. It's not. It does get brittle when you run it under hot water to like straighten it out, which you have to kind of be careful with. But I mean, like, I'm really big on that army painted dip, and I just tell myself if I put army painted dip on it, like if I just brush it on, it's bulletproof. I've convinced myself.
The dip is different than the wash, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit thicker, and it's way better to brush it on. And I even think like if you put like a gloss, like a thin coat of gloss down first, so it flows better, and it kind of preserves the brightness of the metallics as well.
Yeah, you know what most people forget though? You know what most people forget when they're painting their miniatures, when they're trying to protect them? The underside, the underneath the base.
Yeah.
Because that's another location that oxygen can get in there. And, you know, because I bought miniatures still sealed in the package, and I'm looking at them, and I wiggle it around a little, and there's nothing but this black dust in there. And it's like, it's garbage.
Well, the MDF bases, I use filler primer, like body spray, like you'd use on a car. Because it kind of plastinates it, as it were. But I don't do anything with the plastic bases. I just assume they probably will crumble at some point. But I really like square MDF bases with the rounded corners. Like they look really classy.
Mhm.
So, I've got like a stack of those in wood. Anyway, I'm gonna go now because I really got to do a constitutional and stretch my back out a bit. But it's good talking to
Okay,
you
well,
guys.
there's a spot open
Hey,
if you
James,
want it.
good to talk to you,
This
bud.
show's only going to go on for a little while longer because I
Yep.
promised Nathan I'd drag everybody over to his paranormal chat tonight.
Yeah.
Because I want to share the time with him, and I do want to hang
Yeah,
out with
yeah.
him.
Yeah, of course.
So if you
course.
guys, in about 30 to 40 minutes or so, I'm going to jump over there with him. You guys are all welcome to hang out.
Yeah, I'll be
with
back in
him as
about
well.
an hour. I'll be back and listening in about an hour. Just really gotta when you're 6'2" and you kind of like sleep in a coffin upside down. These things happen.
Oh,
Hey,
no,
James,
well,
thank you for the super chat, man.
So James, before you leave, is this because you're on the underside of the world that vampires can only go out in the day?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm a beach vampire.
Okay, just making sure.
All right, take care, James.
All right.
Hey,
See ya.
James,
Bye.
Praying for you, buddy.
I just want to say to James real quick, thank you for the super chats the other night, sir. You did not have to do that, but I appreciate it.
He's one of the best out there, guys.
Sorry.
He just is. Everywhere I go, he's there. And funniest guy I know. I'm just going to put it that way.
Between him and Joe, I giggle a lot.
Hey, Bruce, what was the satyr miniature that you were painting?
Which one?
The big one that's right there. That's
it's a frost giant.
Frost giants.
Oh, I'm sorry. I looked at the head. That's why I was looking at it. To me, it looked like
Which kid frost giant, man?
Oh, okay.
They're not too shabby.
No, I was looking. I was like, boy, that looks like Privateer Press's satyrs that they have for their Circle of Ouroboros. So I was just curious.
So my daughter,
I'm not seeing the head as the problem. It's all I see is the skull on top of it. So
my daughter last year in school, they read the Alice in Wonderland campaign, the Alice in Wonderland book, and she's like, "Dad,
Looking Glass or D&D thing?"
It was the Looking Glass, the original book, the Alice in
okay.
Wonderland book, and she's like, "Dad, could you do?" She just asked me random questions from time to time. "Dad, could you do an Alice in Wonderland themed D&D game?" I'm like, "Yes, I can." And
there's actually a module out there.
There are two, aren't there? There are two.
Yeah, you're right.
And I found
pay a pretty penny though.
I found the Jabberwocky fig over at my local game shop, and I'll be painting up the Jabberwocky. And there is a rabbit race that 5e just dropped, Harrigan's or something like that. That I'm gonna pick up one of those figs for the rabbit. And fuck 5e, I'm just gonna do my own thing.
No, I just have to go like more. This is more of the like WotC just needs to.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it because you never know where you're going to use or how you're going to use those figs. It's more tools in my toolbox.
No, I don't disagree with that. Well, my problem was, and again, this is coming from the old school. Right. If you're going to put stuff in, put them in a setting and leave them in the setting. Don't allow them to go change between worlds.
They came out of the Feywild and which handle something. There's a module all to itself. Yeah. But once they're in, all the DMs, not all the DMs, but as long as they're in a hard book, I'll allow them in my campaign. I'm like, you're an idiot. But whatever.
That was my point. Is if you left races where they were Dark Sun had their mules. The mule was specific. Thri-Kreen were specific until they started. But that's my point. Is when you start leaving them into certain systems, and again, this is what it comes down to because too many people don't say no. But it would be nice to say this is limited to this world. You can do whatever you want, but we're not going to put it in X. But I understand they're trying to sell books, and because of that, unfortunately, the quality really has seemed to go down. But yeah, I was just curious about that.
I'm in a couple campaigns. One of the guys' campaign I'm in, he's running 5e, but he's not running 5e. He's just using the engine. And he's like, whatever race is to a certain degree that you want to do. And you either say yes or he'll say no. And I'm like, I want to play a shifter out of fucking Eberron. Okay, I can make that work. There's already werewolves in my, so you're just an ancestor. I have a werewolf as an ancestor. I can make that work. Me, when I DM, I give 10. I have a list of 10 different races.
Okay, yeah, that's what I would do. Is I'd limit it to certain 5. They're like, well, I want to do this. I'm like, no, and they can complain all they want, but there are certain races I just hate because it removes traps. Like, okay, you're a Warforged. Well, I don't sleep, I don't breathe, I don't eat. I'm like, okay, you've just removed almost everything that I like to have in my adventures. So no, you're banned. The other part is
there's Warforges in my campaign. No, you cannot play one. Why? Because Warforges don't have souls, and all my characters, all my PCs have to be living creatures.
I would completely rewrite that, and I mean, you could look at the Warforged or the artificial men from Monty Cook's Unearthed Arcana, and you could write your own character, but there is a requirement for food that you would have, because there are living parts of these creatures you could write up and say, once per day you have to have 6 ounces of organic food.
Well, I would be
vegetable or meat, either or.
I would be honest. I would be happy if they said, okay, you have to put an X amount of flasks of oil into a Warforged every day.
You have to shut down for X amount of hours per day, or you'll burn your circuitry or whatever. There should be limits on all races.
And
that was the idea, is to bypass that. When all the other races have almost all of these massive limitations, in comparison, it's like it's just kind of a dumb idea. I get it if you were playing sci-fi. If you're playing a superhero game or sci-fi and you want to be an android or a robot, awesome. But in fantasy, it's just
I want my characters to have some kind of limitation, and even in sci-fi, you're still going to have to power up. I don't care what it is. Or something like that. And speaking, sorry for Connell here, so it's called Dungeon Land and EX1 and EX2, The Land Beyond the Magic Mirror. Those are the two.
Yeah, I have one of them. I don't know which one it is. I have one of them.
I have one or two. I can't remember. They may all be rotted by now. My parents.
And I didn't know at the time when I bought it, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, not my thing,
I was trying to get my daughter and her friends down at a table.
Totally understandable. Totally understandable.
I have nothing. I have nothing against it. It's just that is it the game I want to play? It's just like when Max talks about his stuff. I'll be honest. I don't mind characters. When they say, "Well, they fall off the cliff. They don't do this." It's, well, you know what? You hit a bunch of vines and stuff. You take a certain amount of damage. That's the advantage of being a fighter. The wizard has feather fall. Your fighter has hit points, and I don't mind it so much. But I play more of a pulpy style. That's what I like for my games. But but if I want gritty, then I'll pull out some of their system, not D&D. For me, because I want to play Pulp Fiction for the most. Not Pulp Fiction, but I want to play pulp style. But yeah,
I want to play Reservoir Dogs.
For my home game, I will throw aspects of 3.5 in my 5e game, where all the races have a +2, -2, or a plus whatever to -1 to my races. Oh, they don't have this in 5e. I don't really care.
And that's the negative I find too much with all of the games. I know we've gotten way off of the alien part. Is you give everyone except humans basically now dark vision, and you're really
Dragonborn there for a while didn't have it. They just now got it. And I'm like, that was like one of the few races. Like, why don't Dragonborn have dark vision? That makes no fucking sense.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but my point is that they want to put in all these positives, and then you go, well, why would I play a human? And that's the problem that and the same problem applied to Gygax. To be fair, though, this is why I liked basic D&D. Is I'm going to play a dwarf. Great, you play a dwarf. Well, I want to be, such and such race. No, your class is your race in that game unless you're human. And the idea was to limit, and I liked it, to be honest. What can elves do? And they're limited to a certain level. That's as high as they go. And that was the whole point of that. But nowadays, it's
I was never on board with that. And again, I was not playing when that was a thing. I want a campaign to go as long as it goes. I'm not going to look at one of my players. Sorry, you have to make a new character because Elf taps out at 10. When I'm doing 20.
That may be true, but the same token is that something that they pick out when they're doing it. But if you actually go read, and this is why I said the books that no one ever reads is we lost Shadow. That if you actually read the books, you can actually see why he did it. It specifically says why they were doing stuff in the game. Right. And from a design standpoint, you have to understand why they do it. And that's true. And I think that's the problem is people look at it. I'm not disagreeing with you, but if you don't do it, okay, what are you going to do when that character has been adventuring for 600 years? What level are they going to be? And
that is a very solid argument. I can't argue that, but the moment where they chop the elf's lifespan to basically match his human, I don't know what edition they did that in.
What? When did they do that?
Was it Pathfinder? Am I thinking Pathfinder, Bruce?
Maybe you're thinking Pathfinder.
No, Pathfinder was hundreds of years.
Oh, okay.
There's some edition I played once where humans, elves lived maybe about 25 years, maybe 50 years longer than humans, but it was a D20 system, and it felt like D&D.
Well, yeah, but no. Elves have always lived like thousands of years or hundreds of years.
It could have also, to be honest, it could have also just been a homebrew rule that the DM threw in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of these days, because I'm so fucking tired of elves and I'm a goddamn superhero. I'll live for 3 fucking centuries before I hit puberty. Blah 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 blah.
You know what I like to do, and this is where I take it more from the old Changeling, from World of Darkness, is when you leave the Fey world, you start aging at the same rate as humans.
I can get behind that.
And so that and so when they suddenly look at that is how long do you want to wait in here? And the other part is that when you start looking at that, and then the other thing that you slowly come down to, which again from Changeling for some stuff, is if you spend too much time away from home, you basically become human and you can never go back. So at a certain point, you're kind of temporary in the game and you can go back. And so, yeah, you can have the same character show up multiple times, but it's a limited character. So even if you go, we'll do this campaign over hundreds of years and you have your children and that same character can come back in, but it's limited. And that's what I would like to do for some of this. But again, that's the problem I have with 5e is they're so afraid to say any negatives. Oh no, kobolds are weak. Oh
yeah, because they're afraid of the one SJW is going to stir up so much shit that they're going to go bankrupt. They're absolutely insane.
The shop I work
what's
at.
Happening, Sport? I wonder where you went. Real quick with elves. For me, I don't know how many of you out there read Elric. For me, Elric was an elf. And from an elven society that would be the logical conclusion of an elven society had they not been forced to do the Tolkien thing that so many people do. If elves were left unchecked, that's what you would have. And not saying I want to run an evil elf, because I don't think Elric was actually evil. I think the rest of them were. He wasn't, which is weird, because if you listen to what he says and think, he was like the only good elf left in his people. And I want to run characters like that.
If you live for thousands of years, morality just becomes an afterthought. It's like sexuality and a few other things. It's just like whatever.
Okay. And here's the big misconception everybody makes when dungeon mastering for elves. Sure, they can live thousands of years if they stay home. They go out adventuring. They tend to have fewer hit points than the average other character. All D&D, you multi-class, you split, you got less hit points than the average person. They rarely had 18 constitutions, so they just were.
Well, they had
to be sneaky.
Well, here's the other thing, though, is, and people forget about this, and this is what I always look at, is I always look at dwarves and elves, which is what they kind of do in Warhammer. They're a dying race. Is that they
that trope is kind of burnt for me. Everybody says
really like that idea.
They're never. No one ever has the balls to go, look, this is the Elven Kingdom. They rule the world with with a velvet glove. You don't realize it, but they are the true power, and deal with it. Be an elf, cool, don't care. Don't be an elf. But if left unchecked by plot armor and they're a dying race trope, they would be so badass that most people don't want that.
Well, and I agree with you on one part, but see, when I say dying races, they can't have children. That's what I mean by a dying race. So not only are they getting
whatever excuse it is, it's just that, because if they were left unchecked, they would be the worst monsters ever.
I
just like Galadriel said.
Well, and that's the thing of whenever you get the age thing, is if they have unlimited levels and you live 2,000 years, what level are you going to be? I mean, that's what part of it comes down to. Even if you, in an old D&D, because it's 1 XP per gold piece, and you go out, I don't have to venture that much. All I have to do is kill enough orcs over enough centuries. I will gain those levels. And I think that's the problem that I had, where there's a limitation for that, and that never bothered me. Now, again, when we talk about evil, I do like the way that Symbaroum does it, where they are not necessarily evil, but they are absolutely cutthroat. And when you come into their property, they are more of the elves. How do I want to put it? They're more like the elves of, if you remember watching Hellboy, the second one.
Yeah,
Never watched it.
So
I get you.
You know, when you look at that, where that prince was coming in, and the point is yes, we're a dying race. We are incredibly powerful, and we're not going quietly into the night. You know, but yeah, there's I don't mind that with Bruce when he's putting that. I you know, have
for me with not most of, but my main campaign world, there's all kinds of magic out there, right? Well, there's these things called wishes, and sometimes the elves get them. What do you think they're going to do with them? They might just very well wish for those bad things that are happening to their species no longer happen. All it takes is one wish and a bit of fairness.
Well, I think the concept
suddenly they're back on top again.
I would never use it. I mean, I would if I had to, but I think it's just too big.
Hey, it's Nathan.
What's happening, buddy?
What's up, y'all? What's going on, guys?
Wouldn't be Saturday night without hanging out with you, man. James is feeling a little bit better.
That's good.
But he's out doing a walk to feel better.
That's not what constitutional means.
What?
I thought it was a walk.
No, he said I gotta go take a constitutional and stretch my back out.
He's gonna sit on a throne for a bit and crap out some Watsy.
Oh, okay. You mean
What
a
did I
sequel to
walk
the scientist?
into?
Oh, I misunderstood what
The
James said. I
Scientist
thought
is
he
a
was
bad movie. All right, let's stop talking about it. It was a.
What about the scientists?
I would say it was a mistake to watch it, but yes, it was. I don't
But
have.
it was fun.
It was.
Which
it was
movie?
fun. The Scientist.
The scientist.
It's a movie we reviewed on Connell's channel.
Oh, okay.
Also, before
Yeah,
this,
you can get it at the Dollar Tree. You can get it at the Dollar Tree.
Before we go start talking about
Not a
zombies,
ringing endorsement, okay?
yeah, go watch it. It's a good movie. Very
I'm
thought-provoking.
What can I say? It was a family video
Thought-provoking is,
special.
how do you make this better? Actually, no. The thoughts that it provokes is, why would I ever have bought this? I want my $1 back. That's the thought that it provokes.
You
Sounds
know
like
what?
you didn't enjoy it.
I kind of enjoyed it, but not really. I have a complicated relationship with The Scientist.
You have a complicated relationship with a lot of things.
Okay, you may be right. All right, Andrew Johnson is the worst president, but we need to watch Xenophobia. That's my point. Xenophobia, good movie.
I don't know. You picked up The Scientist. I'm wary of movies you say that are good.
I never said The Scientist was good.
It doesn't matter. You picked it out.
I knew it was bad. It's literally called The Scientist, and it says underneath it, there is no cure for the dead.
I'm the scientist.
The Scientist, no cure for the dead.
So what were you going to say there, Haas?
I'm just going, you know, we all have our guilty pleasures. Mine just happens to be spaced in. Mine just happens to be Spaced Invaders.
Space
I haven't played
Invaders
that
is
game
good.
forever.
Hey, we all have our guilty pleasures. When I do it, I say, look, I enjoy it for what it is. It's hilarious. Leave your brain at home. It's meant to be all tongue in cheek. But you know what? That does get us back onto space aliens.
Actually, before we go there, I was going to say something about elves. See, the solution to elves, they live for 1,000 years. It's not.
Is this the final solution to elves?
No.
It's a temporary solution.
Vana, I love you, Vana.
It's a permanent solution for a temporary problem with elves.
Well, yes, we put them in a place where above the gate says "Work will grant you freedom" or "Bring you freedom" or whatever.
I wasn't there. I didn't. That wasn't where this is going. All right, that wasn't going there. Can we go at least one stream without talking about the guy who had a mustache? All right.
You mean Stalin? You mean Stalin? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Tom Selleck?
Chuck Norris?
Yeah.
Sam Elliott?
Hey! What wasn't there a dark side where he had a toupee or something? When he put it on, it took over the guy's personality or something. Or
that was the guy from
sorry. Okay.
He was Stacy something. He was from Titus.
Stacey
He was the dad from Titus.
Stacey Keith. Yeah, we were just talking about him earlier.
Okay.
You got to forgive him because he just saw the introduction of Girl Hitler or Lady Hitler and the Venture Brothers today. So
yeah.
No, she was in a few other episodes.
It's not even April. Hitler came early this year.
All right, back to what I was saying. There's no final solution for elves, no. But the solution with the problem of elves, they're too powerful. You don't make them a dying race. No, they need a counterbalance. They need something else to prevent them from taking over the entire world. Because as much as I hate how my dad's like, elves are the superior master race. That's gay. But they need something to prevent. They need to be prevented from becoming the all-powerful race controlling everything else on the planet or in the galaxy. You give them something which is maybe not equal in power, but able to prevent them from taking over.
These could be our brothers, our cousins. These elves, they will take over the world. I like these elves. They're good. They have the banks under their control yet. That's what we want.
I'm sorry. I just saw Iron Man. I'm just being a jackass here, saying, "Oh, look, we're getting the story for the Mandalorian."
I don't know anything about the Mandalorian other than I've heard it's good, but
not bad.
We don't have that.
I'm just laughing because when he says adventure, and to me, still shamelessly. If you watch something on TV and it gets your juices going, and that's what I used to do when I was your age, Jack. As soon as I saw a movie and I liked that character, I would create a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different systems to emulate that character.
Exactly.
Seven Samurai.
I hate to admit it, but I've done that hundreds of times. Yeah.
Well, me and Jade have argued multiple times. He said, "Well, your D&D or whether the characters are kind of comic bookish," and I'm like, "Point me out a character in D&D that is not comic bookish. We can even go through Lord of the Rings, and I can cut through all that using D&D comic books."
Well, it to be fair, it was meant to. They grew up on all of that stuff, so of course it's going to be in there and represented. I think those are the things that come into it.
I mean, in Bruce's campaign, I play an archer that likes to put things on his arrows. So is that Hawkeye or Green Arrow? I'm like, it's a functional character. That's what counts.
You know what I used to do? You know what I used to do in 1E? Because if you looked at how you mix potions and there's an explosion.
Yeah.
Well, let's get Billy chart.
Then I was like, well, if you can figure out on what the two are where they explode, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to the arrow. So then I can shoot the arrows and see this.
Speed of Force, Pearl of Fireball, Orb of Dust of Dryness Orb. I mean, there was a spell called Item from 2nd edition that if you wrap the fabric around the arrow and tie the loose string to something else and you shoot it, 40 pounds of horseshit falls on the enemy. So I like to MacGyver when I do. I'm an archer in real life, and I can't do this stuff in real
my
life.
God, that's awful.
Well,
Wait, what? Oh,
Should
the
I say, or should I say that's awful?
awful.
You know what? Didn't they do that in Invulnerable or Invincible and where they fight against each other? I have no problems with that. Actually, to be honest, that's one thing I do kind of like about the Drow is the Drow were supposed to be those dark, evil elves out there, and the fact that they've decided to, we're going to make them this, we're going to make them that.
Nerf them, yeah.
their core alignment has got to be chaos because that's what Loth is. If you bring to me a chaos neutral Drow, I will argue it, but I will not argue the alignment.
Well, here's what gets me is if you actually read it, their ability to advance is determined by Loth. So technically, you're not going to go ahead unless you're worshiping her.
Yeah.
And that's the other part that other people forget about, and I know we've gone off, and if you fail the trial, which means if you're good or something, she will turn you into a Drider.
Which sucks.
Well, actually,
which is guaranteed to turn you evil.
Well, even if it doesn't turn you evil, if nothing else, now you can't. That's the problem that I have all too often is, and to be fair, I was bad about it too as a kid, is there were a lot of social aspects that were considered negatives, along with the negative levels. But even then, even if the characters were limited to 10th level, like you're talking about there, Connell, really, those are the fun levels. And I know that Shadow says he's played with really high levels. I didn't find those any. I haven't found those as much fun as when they're at the lower level myself. I kind of like the 5th through 9th levels.
I also don't have a problem with the hated term of multi-classing. So I like to blend characters. I like a concept like Conan. Conan is not just one thing. Conan in D&D is multiple different classes. Oh yeah, I got it somewhere.
I'm sorry you mentioned it, and to be fair, that's what I like. But you have to look at what their first edition and second edition were, which were you went up those levels concurrently, and that was really what they were intended to do. And that's what was special about being a demi-human, was you could multi-class. That was what was special about them, and really, you were about anywhere from 1 to 3 levels behind the rest of the party, depending if you took magic user or not.
Right.
Right up to about 9th level. And that was really about as far as you need. And so when the rest of the part, by the time that you kind of maxed out, the rest of the party was probably 11th level. You're a little bit lower. But the other part was multi-class, and this is the other reason I liked it as a kid. I know Max talks about playing with these giant groups. I never had those giant groups. I had 4 to 6 players at most whenever we played. And because of that, multi-class was kind of required if you need people with thieves, because a lot of people don't want to play.
Exactly.
And the same thing with magic users or clerics. We multi-class to get those other abilities to make us that way. And that was part of what we did. And I think that's, I understood that. And to be fair on this, and I think a lot of people forget about it because I was listening to the Alexandrian, which was really good when he was going through the white box. We think that everyone plays together, but Gygax's groups, it was whoever was playing that night. And what they would do a lot of times is the 5th level wizard would farm 1st level characters through dungeons until they started getting up in levels. And that's how they would do it. I'm not, that's the problem I have with Victims of Circumstance. That sounds nice for stuff, but the problem is that none of them actually want to go with a real decent backstory to do that. I don't get me wrong, I like anti-heroes for that, which what Crown Target's talking about. But at a certain point, when you look at D&D, which is good and evil, many times the villains know they're evil and they're willing to accept it. And go to other systems like Vampire, which has the humanity system, where you can say, okay, I'm losing my soul. But for D&D, go ahead, Chad.
I get having villains that have motivations that make sense. That's not just reasonable, but it should be there. I mean, yes, there's always room for the evil for evil's sake. You'll never catch me, Batman type villain. But saying, oh, they're just victims of circumstance. Oh, it was society that turned them evil. They're actually a victim. They were abused as a child, so now they're a mass murderer, and it's okay because they have mommy issues. That's
Really quick,
not only
though,
dated because
Batman's a whole different subject because it literally is Gotham that makes those people go the way they did.
it was the first
80%
superhero
of
aside
Batman's
from
rogue
okay.
gallery have a doctor's degree in something. It's not
All
poor
right,
me.
they would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
Okay. Well, let's bring one other thing. People forget about the existential aspect of D&D. You pick your deities that you worship. It's just like the cultists of Cthulhu. You knew who you're worshiping. You knew that they're not good. Tend to do it for power. And there's, the problem is that people look at modern day, and whether you believe in God or not, the actual aspect is you don't have deities literally flying from the skies, smiting people that you see in normal things. For D&D, you do. You do see this. And you do see, you get the dragon. I can polymorph. I can do this. I can breathe fire. We don't have that, in our modern world so much. And because of that, it makes a huge difference when the God that I pick to worship will literally give me power. And so what do you get out of that? Well, you lose your eternal soul. And that's the difference that people forget about is they want to look at it in modern day. And I'm like, okay, that's one thing. But no, you know the powers that you're trafficking with. And the idea, just like Warhammer, is I am selling my soul for something. And if I do a good enough job, I don't become a lesser devil or demon, like a lemur or something like that. I can rule the plane of hell. And that's what they're trying to go for. And I think that people forget about that in D&D is there is alignment and planes and gods are integral to this game. And if you don't do it, then you're missing out on why there was alignment in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of like when people try to make a movie about pagans in ancient Greece or ancient Rome and try to use modern morality and also try to make an atheist message at the same time. It just doesn't work. Back in those days, if you were to deny the existence of a river god, to them it would be like denying the existence of the river. To some ancient Greek guy saying Zeus, the sky god, not real. So you're saying the sky isn't real? To them, it would be the same thing. Obviously,
hold on. The sky and Zeus are two different gods. Father Sky and Mother Earth made the Titans. The Titans made the Greek gods.
Okay, you know what I'm trying to say.
But remember, we're assuming, when you go back to this mythology, the gods walked the earth.
Yeah.
There was that's the thing that people forget about. And you got to see, almost all the heroes, to be fair, were children of gods. And you got to see that. Like,
Yeah.
If all of a sudden I saw someday, it's one thing to say, okay, I see Eddie Hall or I see, Bjorn Halfthorson doing stuff. It's very different when I see someone suddenly glow and lift a boulder over his head and throw it. And I'm going, all right, that doesn't work with my math.
I'm not saying this. I've kind of got lit up in other people's shows. Yes, I'm a Catholic. Yes, I believe. I want to just throw that out here now. No, I wasn't worried about you lot on somebody at the other channels.
I know who you're talking about.
But if somebody from the Middle East came out and says, I am Christ risen, two things are going to happen to the poor bastard. Nut house or killed because, we don't want to believe it. That's non-society. We don't want to believe it.
And to be fair, that's the other part with D&D is when you start looking at golems, all of us go for magic is all around. It is not just, wonderment. It is literal, all of a sudden you come out and they have science and everything else. And I'm sorry about this, Nathan. I'm just seeing you point. but these are the things that, but it's existential. They know that they're corrupting their soul. I am raising the dead for a race to do this, to conquer the land. Yes, if your guys like, I am going away, but that's not really how a lot of D&D villains work. They are behind their castle. It takes the adventurers to go to the castle or the tower to take them out. They have their everyone in there, and many of them, to be fair, what's the average person? The average person is 0 level with 1 to 4 hit points, or was it 1 to 6, something like that. They're
1 to 6. It was 1 to 6.
Yeah, so they're 1 to 6, and so when you look at that, of course they're not afraid. To be fair, if you're a 10th level magic user, I can fight better than the average person. I have more hit points than the average person. I have all these spells. I can summon up, Of course you're going to laugh at them. Oh, you were nothing. This is easy to do. I can just, do this. And also you get a party of adventurers coming in. You're like, holy hell, these guys are like the heroes of old. And that's what I think that that's what I liked about D&D when I was growing up as a kid. Was like, oh, okay, you are the heroes that I've read about in books. You're, Achilles and Jason the Argonaut and stuff like that. And,
That's kind of the reason why I like Pathfinder, because the Pathfinder deities are actually out in the world, and they might not get directly involved, but the drunk god will go to taverns, aka his temples, and oh no, the barrels ran out of booze. Snap his finger, holy booze for everybody! And I'm like, why can't the Christian god be like that? That's awesome.
He felt like Peter Griffin when he says, he turned water to wine. He's like, man, this guy must have been drunk 24/7.
Hold up, this might be interrupting, and if you don't want me to mention this at all, it's fine. But I've been working on something on the side of map, but I got sent to this, and apparently there are hundreds of ghost sightings of Michael Jackson. And they're just all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Why is
I have not heard that. I have never heard that.
Ghost. Because there are way too many of these things.
No, wait a minute. So Michael Jackson. So what we're saying is Elvis has now morphed into Michael Jackson.
That's what I was thinking. So
No,
Michael Jackson replaced Elvis?
Are you saying Michael Jackson is now Bigfoot?
Sightings of Michael Jackson's ghost. Michael Jackson's ghost spotted everywhere. There are so many of these things, and most of them are just like, oh, it's a guy, it's a creepy guy, it's a creepy face of a guy with like long black hair and pale skin, and they just
Elvis didn't die. He was
ghost is real.
Well, wasn't he scary enough in real life? Now we got to deal with the fucking ghost.
I just don't get it. It's like Michael Jackson's ghost haunts impersonator. Michael Jackson's Indonesian man saves Michael Jackson's ghost. What is this? And I
thought the world that we live in. They're all a bunch of crackpots out there.
I can see this happening all over the world as thousands of people report Michael Jackson's ghost creeping in their bedroom or their bathroom whenever people are getting out of the shower. You see this pale face guy with long black hair going, hee, and he steps out.
This is just a blurry picture of a woman, and it just says a black and white blurry picture of a woman, and it says 100%, all caps by the way, 100% real! 3 exclamation marks. Michael Jackson ghost sighting caught on tape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 exclamation marks.
I mean, all the ghosts of all the people that come back and haunt people, I guess they give worse people, I live in Illinois. I mean, I'm thinking of John Wayne Gacy off the top of my head.
I'm so happy. Jeffrey Dahmer? Wasn't Jeffrey Dahmer in that area too?
Hey, we don't talk about him.
Wasn't he the gay guy who burnt people in acid and tried to make zombies?
No. See. Well, yes, but see, when he talks about John Wayne Gacy, go read about this stuff. If you really want to, if you want to go down a rabbit hole, look.
Hey, that's gonna give him fucking nightmares, man.
Well, I mean,
you'll never look at clowns the same.
No, it's not even the clowns. Look at what he was. He was the. He did also. I mean, he was like the.
Yeah. He was a mover and shaker in his area. He was a public face for the company he was running. He was a Republican at one point. He was a Democrat at one point. Whatever worked for him. Yeah.
So speaking of which, well, yeah, that's the question. Well, it depends if you're in a gray mic or white.
Most of them are pale white skin, Michael Jackson.
Okay, so here's the
creepier version.
I'm looking what Armin said about deities being otherworldly and beyond the reach of mortal. You know what though is if you look at the classic stuff, They came down. They took the women. They would wrestle, whether it's Norse or Greek mythology.
Oh, Zeus was a whore.
Oh well, yeah, and his wife would come down on whoever did it. But that was the whole point of it is that the gods were to walk among you. They did what they did. They were capricious. They you tried to avoid them as much as possible, and you gave them gifts to like leave you alone. For
But
exactly
you did not take gifts from them.
You pay them to leave.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yes. They're whores.
So they were basically like prostitutes. You paid them to leave.
Yep. But that was the idea. It's like, hey, I don't want to do this. I appreciate it, and yeah, nothing good ever came from it. But that's the way that I like it. But but people forget about this when they talk about D&D, not understanding on how this is integral to the world. And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of what's in there is people just want to play Harry Potter. Harry Potter really didn't have too much in there as far as deities and things like that. And that's fine if that's what people want, but that's not
Neither did Tolkien. He was terrified.
Tolkien did have gods. Tolkien did technically have a god of sense.
Well, no. They had gods.
In the most unreadable book he ever wrote, yeah, but in the Hobbit and the trilogy, nada.
Right.
Well, if you look at when you read the appendices and stuff back there, in the Return of the King, you realize that there's a lot of stuff in there. What are they fighting? But you're right. The still things came down to, which is to me is what makes it heroic, is when the gods are not interfering too much. I mean, even Gandalf, if you look at him, what did Gandalf do besides fight off the Balrog? He fought off some goblins and the Balrog. That's it in the two books.
The wraiths on the wyverns.
But they can only be killed by a woman.
Well, no.
No, only the leader could. That was only the leader.
I thought that was all of them. Okay, my bad.
Well, if you actually
just the leader.
That was the battle in Weathertop, but nowhere in there does it actually say too much in there. When when they describe in the books, he fights off the goblins and the Hobbit, and then the other one he fights off the Balrog, and that's about it.
And he takes off for long parts of the thing. It's like, the Lord of the Rings from the beginning to the very end took 17 years. It wasn't 6 months; it was 17 years because he was doing research for
It was longer than that. If you look at The Hobbit took like 1 year, however long. It was like, a year or two from the time he left to the time he came back. And then it's like 50 years. It's 50 years until they start the Fellowship of the Ring.
Right.
And
I'm just saying the whole Lord of the Rings, that aspect was 17 years. And Harry Potter wasn't a wizard. His first 3 levels were in Rogue. Then after about the 4th book, then he started to become a wizard. From a D&D term.
Well, from the old. Well, I looked at it as like he was a 0 level for the longest time. Then he went up.
No, he's got rogue levels. He snuck around. He stole.
No. Shadow knows what I'm referring to with 0 level in the Greyhawk book, where you started off and you could dip into a bunch of different classes. At 0 level, you only got up to like 1st level ability. That's about it. Well, Gandalf's biggest thing is that he was acting more as a messenger. And that's why
he was technically an angel.
Yes, he was, but he was more of a messenger. If you look at what he does, was to get humans to interact rather than him trying to say, "I can do this by myself."
Right.
Human, and that's what that's why when we talk about growing up on this classic mythology, the gods helped, but at the end of the day, the heroes still had to do stuff. You couldn't just sit back and go, "Okay, you're drag me along." It's. I think that there's a lot of that aspect, and then of course, like you said, when you did the Silmarillion and the other things that are going on,
they were a boring read. I will not say that they weren't boring, but you can't bring up Tolkien and his holiness without bringing up all of his books.
Yeah, but less than 1 in 1,000 Tolkien fans has ever read the Silmarillion.
Well, you can say that about the Bible.
I tried reading the Silmarillion and my head just goes.
I've got a problem with The Hobbit. If I want a good night's sleep, I'll try to read Hobbit.
You know what though? Is The Hobbit I found was very easy to read for if you want like light. So to me, it's on the Harry Potter level of writing.
It's a kid's book. It was totally a kid's book.
Yeah, they wrote a year-long report on The Hobbit in like 3rd or 4th grade.
He even said that it was meant to be read to children by an adult. Enough said.
What was the letters between Tolkien and C.S. Lewis? Have you guys read any of those letters?
No, I have not. I've read his stuff on the Green Knight. He did.
C.S. Lewis was yelling at Tolkien for not having enough Jesus and God in his book, and Tolkien was like, "You have too much."
You can never have enough.
But
That's totally accurate on all counts.
Well, yeah. Well, and part of it is that if you start bringing in all of the gods and things, you're taking away from your heroes. And in D&D, yes, you have the worshiping aspect for it, but the heroes are still ones doing the action. If all of a sudden they start coming in and you as the DM said, you know what, Paladin, you get your +5 Holy Avenger. Not that you quest for your +5 Holy Avenger. You get your +5 Holy Avenger. You get this armor. You get this. You get that. You get this. Is it really the character that's doing the stuff, or is the fact that you loaded this guy up so he now has -10 armor class as the real hero for this? And I think that's the part of it in there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
think it depends on what he's facing. It depends on what he's facing. If he's going up against a dragon by himself, it's a fair fight. If he's going up against a lich, same thing.
But I want
Demon
them to,
Lord.
But I want them to quest for those items. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's how he gets to 10th level. That's how he gets there.
Yeah,
especially if you throw in the XP value for those items after the fact, then yeah, cool. He's earned it. Let him go. Do what paladins do best. But just handing it over, nah, that's weak.
That's what I mean. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna just She-Hulk is all. Jeez, I'm not taking that bait. Anyways,
She-Hulk.
Hey, John, what's happening, man?
Hey, at least they're using the right pronoun for it. That's all I'm saying.
What is? When was there
no
a pronoun
aside from
She-Hulk?
Z-Hulk. Z-H-E.
Anyway, what I was going to say
She-Hulk.
I've brought this up with I've talked about this a few times. I've talked this with Bruce, and I've talked about this with Shadow. There's a part of me just wants to rip all the gods out of my campaigns,
and thus
yes.
all the druids and clerics too. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's not worth
For that?
Nope. It solves all kinds of arguments. It might cause a few, but it will solve a lot.
Arguments are fun. Who you kidding?
Actually,
who doesn't like being in an argument?
Actually,
but yeah.
If you're gonna rip the gods out, then my view is, Conan works out well for that. The other one that you can look at is for D&D. Go look at Dark Sun. Dark Sun doesn't have deities.
It also doesn't have water.
Or steel. It doesn't have much steel either.
What map are you looking at? There's plenty of water on the big map.
I made the comment in Max's show a couple of weeks ago that I honestly, in my opinion, once again, not an atheist, happy Catholic sometimes, but I don't believe that people should interject a Christian God into D&D. There's already enough gods. The book doesn't need any more.
Well, here's the thing I look at. I'm not disagreeing with you. When you start bringing in people's faith in God, they're going to argue about it. And just from a playability standpoint, leave that out. Whether you do the paladin or not, and yes, I understand that's the whole Christian aspect. When you get the paladins and stuff like that. But
later, Sean. See you tomorrow, man.
Yeah, I think that you're much better off saying, even if let's say that you have a Hindu in yours, at that point, I'm going to leave out your gods because one is I'm not going to do them justice, number one. And number two is I'm going to probably get something wrong. You're going to get offended and it's just going to ruin the game for all of us. And that's why I say, this is why we're going to do polytheistic pantheon.
Yeah. I was looking into it. There's over 3,500 different branches of Christianity and barely any of them get along with the next.
Right. Well, here's the thing.
Well,
if you're going to actually bring in Christ into your game, that's kind of weird. Okay, but having things like the 10 Commandments, those are like pretty much universal for the most part, that's all you need. Okay, it's the same
all you
idea of
need
what
are
makes
5
up good and what
commandments.
makes up evil. What?
All you really need is 5 commandments. Commandment 1: don't be a dick. You know, I'm sorry, I'm quoting George Carlin here.
No, you're
Yeah,
right.
we know. We know. Those of us over 14 know.
What was that,
Yeah,
Bruce?
he was a hack.
George Carlin is one of my heroes. I mean, his earlier stuff is amazing. From a First Amendment point of view, the whole 7 words you cannot say on TV brought in so many legal arguments that are being used today that, like I said, from a legal point, he's a fucking hero.
You know, here's the thing that I look at a lot of it in there. There are other games that represent that. I mean, if you really want to look at it, is, you know, and people might not talk about it, go look at Vampire, which has the strong Jewish Christian mythology running through it. But D&D, no, you're better off sticking with this. And that's the way that I look at it, is just to stop the fighting in between people. That's we come in as an escapism, and when I start bringing in, oh, I'm going to bring in this one, and my God's greater than your God. Well, that's kind of cool if you do it in little Conan, where, you know, your God lives beneath mine. You know, mine is the sky. Okay, that's that's the little interplay I want. I don't want to get over and suddenly it's just like politics. Your politics can be one thing.
Yeah, it's crazy tonight.
Your politics are one thing, but leave that at the table. Leave it outside. You know what? I can talk politics all day, even with people I don't agree with, but I come here to play a game to escape from the real world. And so does everybody else. And that's what we do. And we can do that. But, you know, and what is it? You know, there are D&D games that deal more with Christian Europe. Okay, they have one God. You have that, but they're not. But that's not the way that I grew up with D&D. For me, it was.
Yeah, I think you gotta read the room and handle that in session 0. You know, especially if nobody wants to run a priest or a druid. Okay, cool. Then just do that. But if you do, then you got to deal with it. You know, and you got to make it. You know, just as you're handing out magic for the wizard and cool weapons for the fighter, you got to do cool religious stuff for the priest or the druid or whatever. You got to make everybody feel welcome in the game as a player. You know, you can't just, shine the spotlight only on the paladin the whole time.
I agree with that, but at the same time, as a DM, my life is not to make my players' life easier.
No. Your job as a DM is to make them.
I'm not saying making it easier. There has to be something for them in the game.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, what the fuck would you show up to a game if you're just going to be ignored for 4 hours?
Well, that's
right.
Well, and that's true. That's the problem that I have with it is, and I know everyone says, "Oh, don't mind a long backstory." Just put down a few things in there, you know, and we're going to do it. The problem that I have with it is, like we're talking about the 9 pages of backstory. If you've already wrote this character so much, go write your novel, because obviously you're not coming into the game to develop your character. You're not coming in for all this. Whether, you know, as much as we talk about this, and you know, to be fair, I've been reading Conan for the past couple of weeks. I've been, you know, from Robert Howard. When you look at it, is I don't have to read any of the previous stories to know about Conan. And Conan will throw in a little bit of his backstory, which is usually about 2 lines. Oh, I've done this, or I've done that, or I've done this. And then he moves on.
Sure, in a 0 to hero game. But what about a game like Traveler? And your character's gone through 4 or 5, you know, terms of you know, whatever military or career they were in. They're going to have more than just a couple of paragraphs, you know, because they're starting out at 34 to, you know, 64 years old at that point. And then you kind of have that already done in the character generation process.
I think that when you do that, you should be writing about 1 paragraph per career step that you go through.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's reasonable. Now, to be fair, you know, if you're playing a 54-year-old captain of the ship, all right, I expect you to have a longer backstory and more interesting things. But that's one of those things that, for those life path systems, I do enjoy. I like the Conan life path system. You're going to start off as more competent. You're not quite zero to hero, you're kind of assumed to be an experienced veteran. Now you're not a hero, but you're kind of, but you've been through, you've seen some bad things, and I kind of like those as well. I know Max likes doing it. You're just off the farm. You know,
I just can't eat that. I try, and I understand where he's coming from. But if you're just off of a farm character, guess where you're going to stay? At the fucking farm. Because you're not going, I don't go on an adventure next week. No. You're going to stay at the farm.
Actually, my friend Grim, I just finished reading his book, Arn of Clayhaven, and I did a video on it. And he literally started out as a stable hand, an orphan stable hand that went from 0 to not quite the full-on hero yet, but it was a very interesting take. And some people really want that, but not everybody does, and we can't assume that everybody wants it. That's why I like Travelers so much, because if you want to start out as Luke, with no experience, cool, but that doesn't stop your friend from playing Han Solo, who's 34 years old, or someone playing, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's God only knows how old, and got all kinds of stuff under him.
I think that's and I do like the life path system, but what I'm saying backstory is, you've probably seen it. I like characters that have a little bit more experience than what's in there. I don't like first level that much. Start off at third level. That gives everyone a little bit more flexibility. Now, 5e, they add a lot more to third level than what they used to. But even when you're in first edition, is at least your magic user had, what was it, 3 spells. They could do more than say, okay.
In first edition you had, I think, 3 or 4, and to me that's kind of retarded. It's not enough. It's not enough because you absolutely have to have read magic and detect magic, or you're not a freaking magic user.
You know what my view on those is? Those aren't spells, those are abilities.
Right. Going rules is written. They were, therefore, I put those down right off the bat, put these in your book. I might even throw in identify.
Read magic. Read magic I can get along with as a spell. Even identify, sure, but detect magic, that should be an ability. If you're a wizard, and somebody casts magic around you.
I kind of agree, but at the same time, it's easy for the DM to go, it's glowing.
Well, to be fair, like the Shadow said, is if we're playing by Raw, and if I remember in Raw, you automatically got read magic as one of your spells.
Yes, right.
But the problem that I had with it all too often, and looking
what I
back,
missed, man?
Nope. Hey,
Nathan.
Oh yeah, I see.
What happened?
Are you on mute?
I was on mute because I didn't want all this background noise. I got this running, that running.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I had to get coffee.
Okay. I thought you saw something, you looked back at your chair and saw something weird happen and we all missed it.
No, I was just wanting to, when I'm gone, watch the room. I never know what's going to happen here.
Okay. Well, so if looking back on 1E, it was generally tournament. You look 6 to 8 characters, and you also, and I know Max says, no, I don't like this. If you actually go read it, the expectation is you had retainers, and they were with you when you went in the dungeon. And that's why I like listening to Geek talk about his U3. We had 30, what did he have, 30 NPCs with him? There was something like that on top of the players.
His style is, you got to also understand, he never played first edition. He went in at second. And second took out a lot. I'm getting ready to do a comparison on the two because there's some things I didn't even realize, playing back then that I'm now noticing that are very different between the two editions, even though you can squish them together and use them both interchangeably, take this rule out, use that rule, whatever. If you come from just a second edition perspective, there's a lot of things that are vastly different. And I think the NPC hirelings and henchmen was kind of yanked or less emphasized. I mean, back when we played, as soon as we got out of our first dungeon, a huge chunk of our money went to hiring flunkies to help us out. If not just to carry the gold out, watch our horses, occasionally fight in combat because, there were 30 goblins, That was a huge thing, and that was one of the main purposes of the charisma score, was to see how many henchmen you got. And henchmen weren't just, zero levelers. They were people who were going to go up in level alongside you a little slower, but they were your remember in Adam West's Batman, every one of the villains had a couple of dudes that were their henchmen that were, they were schlocky and whatever, but in some of the other versions of comics and stuff, those guys were, kind of hardened criminals who decided to step it up a notch and, hitch their wagon to somebody a lot tougher who would, pay them crazy amounts of friggin' money.
Well, the other part I think is we have to look at what, that's why I think Basic did so well, apparently, was if you look at the old white box, which went directly into 1E, kind of the expectation is that you had been in the white box era, you understood how that all worked, and then when you went to 1E, it's like, okay, we're going to do no more tournament rules for some of it, and we're going to do this. But to me, it was one of these things that, I know Mac's like, well, I would never play, but that was required, and the modules expected you to do that, and if you didn't do that, then of course they were much harder, which means that you have to scale things back. But then the other point is that they also expected players to run away. Against the giants, the going up towards the frost giants, I feel that there's a huge huge miss on this, because if you look on like where they used to on the Greyhawk, they used to put the hexes where everything was to go from point A to point B. I mean, those mountains, when you really think about it, those were unexplored.
Don't even split it, Nathan.
Yeah, those. You're not taking up space.
I told Nathan tonight we were only going to hang out here for a couple hours, then go over to his show and do more, weird stuff. Not like this isn't weird, but I wanted to, split some time, etc. And I'm pretty sure, because I know he's got some stuff that he wants to talk about, but it's not game related.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not game related at all.
Well, what are you going to talk about? Just curious.
I've got a paranormal topic I want to go over quite a bit now, because I did a solo show a couple of hours ago when y'all were starting, and it was just a solo show. I wanted to document what had going on, and I wanted to bring some people in on it. Shadow wanted in on it. I'm like, I want you to come in on it.
I actually have one new experience that happened recently that I could maybe talk about.
Cool. Well, I don't want to interrupt you guys' show because y'all are hot and heavy on it.
You mean me just
you mean nerd talk? Okay, Nathan. I kind of live, breathe, eat gaming stuff all the fucking time when I'm off work. Okay.
Hey Nathan, can I bring up another aspect, which is I like listening to other stuff as well, because I like to bring it into a game if I want to.
I hear you.
I mean, because to be fair, this is the whole reason I got into engineering, or I kept studying history or stuff, was because of games and try to make things more realistic, or like economics. Well, how does an economic system really work so it makes sense in a world, which, to be fair, 5e is completely blown up with their magic economy. I'm like, nothing makes sense. Why would anyone do?
Stop bringing up arguments that I cannot argue against for 5e. I make money off of this game.
No.
It's okay. Just say the following words, Connell. The people that pay you to run a system that has no logic behind it.
Later on, man. Nice having you here again tonight.
Hey, Connell. No. What I'm saying is that the it's going towards the Harry Potter aspect, which is fine. But 5e, it's that's why I joke about it, because going back and reading stuff in D&D and stuff, trying to just look at the mechanics where he explains things. Oh yeah, is when you go back and read it, and Gygax tells you why he did stuff in the game, and you go, oh, that makes a lot more sense now. But when I was a kid, I'm like, I don't care about this preface. I don't care about this this big wall of text explaining why it's there. Where's the chart? All I care is about the charts. And, oh, look, there's a height. Wait, okay, I'll do that. Yeah. But no, what is your topic, Nathan? Just curious.
Well, I had a thing last night that I did. It was totally off the cuff. And I visited a cemetery and had some real cool shit go down.
That's where ghosts live.
That's where the ghosts are.
That's where the sharks live now.
Oh, dude, you freaking beat me to it, man.
Wait, what?
That's why you don't go in the ocean, because that's where the fucking sharks live.
Which is not true, because once upon a time ago, much thinner version of me used to love to go down to Florida and surf all summer long.
You did until I saw Jaws, and then that was it.
All right, I'm glad you're not talking about how you used to spend your weekends at the beach every time, because I already explained to them why you do that every time. Just you don't need to.
Well, just so Connell feels better. Remember, cemeteries for the most part are consecrated ground, so you can't chop off someone's head there.
Okay, so here's an idea.
Only be one.
Well, I know, but it can't occur on a cemetery. Sorry, go ahead.
Which is one part of the canon. Hold on. That is one part of the Highlander canon. They actually, well, there was a few other things, but that was the one main one they actually stuck with throughout all the movies and TV shows.
We come from the planet Cheek.
Oh, God. The second one does not count. This is how you watch the Highlander movie. You watch the first one. You watch the TV series. You watch Endgame. Then you get off the fucking ride. That's it. No cartoons. No Highlander 2 bullshit. No Next Dimension bullshit. One TV series, Endgame, done.
I was listening to, what was it? It was a Cosmic. I'll have to go look up on my.
Cosmic Wars from.
My friend was talking about putting in one of my books for the Audible books.
Yeah.
Just like, because Nathan's getting there, and I'm like, I hear plenty about D&D. It's kind of cool to listen to some other stuff, and I know that Shadow said, "Well, we're going to end this stream," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that was an hour ago when you said." In like 20 or 30 minutes. So I don't want Nathan being stealing anything.
Well, I need another cigarette, right, guys? Here's an idea. I'll leave it up to like a communist communal vote. Do we go over to Nathan's channel and blow up his show for a bit and talk about some completely different stuff, or would Nathan rather just hang out here and do it? I kind of, one of the reasons I want to do his show also is because we only get so many free hours, and I need to save them for next week, etc.
Well, next week is the beginning of the month. I'm not saying that we shouldn't go. I'm just saying the end of the month, can't use that as an excuse. I'm calling you out, brother.
Okay, so
no. My month starts on the 20th.
Oh shit! Okay.
My month. So this is, and I already did a half hour this week, and we're now at almost 3.5. So
let's X-file this shit up and go over to Nathan's house and talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. It depends on what Nathan wants to. If he wants to talk about gaming, but no.
Really quick, my birthday's on the 3rd.
I saw that.
Really quick, my birthday's on the 3rd. I live in a state of Illinois.
What do you think, Bruce? You gonna come with us?
I'll be there.
So, my mom.
Okay. All right. Real quick. I'm gonna type in something so we can find Nathan Allen's channel, because if you just type in Nathan Allen, it's hard to find.
Position.
I'll put a link in too right now.
So what it was the Cosmic Trigger. Oh well, it doesn't come up, but it was Cosmic Trigger.
Okay. But we do have a bunch of cool people in the chat here right now, and I don't want them to just think like we're abandoning them. So guys, Mar Hawkman, James L, you know the location. Who else is in here? Crown Target. Okay, Crown's on board.
James L.
James L.
Drop the link so we can get on over there. No offense.
I'm going to go set it up.
Okay. All right. And
Just
mind
shoot
you,
me the
you
link.
know,
Shadow, shoot me
Link
the
is
link.
in the chat to my channel. So
Okay.
I'm out. I gotta set it up. I'm using my phone. It's a weird setup.
Okay. Cool. And if need be, my son and I can share a spot. So that there's room for one more because he's taking up one of the slots right now.
Okay.
I'll make room for him here.
Okay. Well,
or
I
we'll
gotta
go
set
down
it
in
up. I
his
don't want
room.
to have too much of a big gap. So I'll see you in a few minutes.
No worries. We'll be right there. Okay, people are already jumping ship. We'll see you there in just a minute.
object to that.
All right.
Okay, now we got rid of him. No, I'm kidding.
What?
Well, no, I didn't want you missing it because I can talk for forever, as you know. So.
No, I know, but I want, anybody who wants to go over there, he's cool with it. You can only do 6. And if this starts working out, maybe we'll do the whatever it costs to get 10 people, and then we can just, go crazy. But he's a really good guy, and I want him to, he's been, sitting there, for like an hour, and I really want to,
No.
What he's got to say, because
I'm just waiting for the link to show up. So I'm just. Oh, or did he send the link in the chat here?
I don't see it there, but all you have to do, I'm going to type it in. But it's if you type in Nathan Allen, Final Faction.
Okay.
Because he does these action figure things that he and I. That's how we met. Was through action figure modifications. He does them for a different reason. I do them to turn them into miniatures for gaming. But that's how I met him because of the.
Just found his link and I put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not seeing it.
I don't see
I'm
it.
not seeing it either.
No, yeah, I was about to say he hasn't started the video yet. The moment he does,
Okay.
So why don't we end broadcasting? I mean, we can all stay back in the green room, but everybody in chat, we'll see you over there as soon as he gets it up.
Yes.
All right, everybody's on board. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for playing along. We love you guys. Have a great weekend, and don't worry, we'll all be back on the the interwebs every spare moment. You guys know the drill. All right, guys. Bye.